Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. How are all you lovely people doing? My name is Dave Scott. I've got a hair in my eye and I can't get rid of it. And maybe my eyebrow hair needs to be trimmed. I don't know. But hey, how are you? Good to see you all. I'm the guy on the radio. I'm the guy who's going to be interviewing Varla Ventura, who looks absolutely stunning tonight, by the way. We'll bring her on momentarily. Before we do, let's give the old rundown of everybody who is here. Race fan in the gold medal position. Jack Clark taking home the silver. The lovely and talented Emily Bigelow, otherwise known as Alaska's greatest athlete, is in the bronze medal position. Gorgeous Jenny Metz. Lovely Steph Dickey. How are you? Good to see you guys. Thank you for coming on in. Grand Paul Holland, thank you for joining us. Ibarata and gorgeous Renee, good to see you. Thanks for coming on in. Lovely Nikki and Joshua are here. The gorgeous Cosmic Fleur has returned. On some Annie Svensson, how are you? Trucker Andrew, give us a honk on that horn if you don't mind. We'd appreciate it. As we scroll on down, William Beardson, how are you, buddy? Good to see you. William, by the way, will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind. Double Tim is here. Tim will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind, to the right. Millennium, John Swan, how are you? Worsley, good to see you, my friend. And let me scroll back up here. There we are. Richard Elmore, good to have you here. Lawrence Burchett, how are you? From Iowa, how are you? Ed Clater's here, everyone. The Ed Clater has arrived. Doc from Wyoming, good to have you back. Chad Smith, thank you for coming on in. I am Chad Smith, by the way. And no, I am Chad Smith. The lovely and talented Tammy Finnegan has returned, everyone. There she is. All right, Mondak, good to see you. And Willow Trees, thanks for coming on in. The lovely and talented Candy Romero, the pride of Las Vegas. There she is. JR, welcome. Oh, there's Major Lee, Travis DeLuca, Steve Stockton from KPNL, and my buddy Jose. There he is. There he is. And where are we here? Olin. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Andrew, thank you so much for kicking off the super chat tonight, buddy. Really do appreciate you, man. And thank you so much for kicking everything off. It's a great way to support our show and what we do here on a nightly basis. So thank you so much. Project Blue Book, Bisler, good to see you. The lovely and talented Wheat Queen, it's Manitoba Becky. She has returned. All right, Mr. Apnea, my air conditioning is fine. Just thought you would like to know. And yeah, I'm all good. Also, from the gorgeous city of Vegas, it is the gorgeous Heidi. She has returned. Yes. What else we got? Oh, that's about it. Wham, bam, ham. What is happening? Welcome to the channel. Wake me up before you go, man. Anybody else get that? Anybody? No. What the hell is... Oh. All right. I'll show you some Varla Ventura right now. There she is. Get a good view. Get a good view at how gorgeous she is looking tonight. Look at those teeth. Look at those teeth. She's like, shut the hell up, Dave. Shut the hell up. Yeah, I know.
Well, you have hockey teeth, so that's why you think my teeth.
I do.
So, yeah,
I do.
I understand.
I do. I do have hockey teeth. All right. Oh, Spookles the Awesome Cat has arrived. Hello, Spookles the Awesome Cat. Still on her birthday hangover. Yep. World Bigfoot Radio. We have Uncle Duke is here. Yeah. Varla is pretty. You should get her on your show. Honestly. She's great. Fantastic. She is the bombette. Lovely Jenny. Good to see you here. Oh. Bombette. I made up a word.
I like that word.
I still don't see that bloody hair. That is totally bugging me.
Here, let me get it for you.
Oh, love you too. Driving me nuts. Oh. Anyways, Dirty Filth. Nice to have you here. And good evening, Boyles. And more. Chad Smith with a great super chat. The real Chad's. I'm Chad Smith, and I donated a super chat. Thank you, Chad. Appreciate that. A super chat, by the way, is a great way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. Another great way to support us is by hitting that subscribe button, ringing that bell. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free for you by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. Yes, she has returned. Varla Ventura is the author of Varla Ventura's Paranormal Parlor, Ghost Seances, and Tales of True Hauntings. Literally, this lady has a number of books out which can be found on any major bookstore. But the most important and impressive part of her resume is that once a month she gets to come on Spaced Out Radio and scare the bejesus out of us when it comes to everything to do with monsters, werewolves, ghosts, spooks, banshees, everything in between. And tonight, it's all about ghosts and werewolves. Why? Because a full moon is coming. VarlaVentura.net is her website. Varla, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I've missed you.
Oh, yes, we've missed you too. We missed you too. You're one of those people who actually commands an audience.
Oh.
You command it. And every time Varla is not here, I get the Where's Varla? I mean, it's like a Where's Waldo book around here.
I'll just have to make you a voodoo doll of me.
Probably. How you been doing?
I've been doing good. It's been, it's some interesting times. I just had Ma hadn't seen my mother in 2 years, and she came to visit me. So that was great. We had a great time. I took her to the local occult shop here and she did a fairy Reiki session, which I wasn't really familiar with, although I've written a book on fairies. But there's a practitioner here who does some energy work, and then, which is what Reiki is. And then he calls on the fairy elementals, and he actually came out of there with tears in his eyes. And my mom came out with tears in her eyes, and they had a very profound experience. So it's been a really interesting week. It's been a lot of it's actually been a little emotional for me, seeing my mom after 2 years, and you know how that can be when you see someone you haven't seen in a long time. You notice the differences and the changes. But we had a great time. We had a great time hanging in the garden. I'm growing tons of pumpkins because what else would I grow? And so we tended the pumpkins and chatted about life. And it was really great.
You know what? It's amazing that you say that, because I saw my mom 2 weeks ago for the first time in like a year and a half.
Oh.
And my mother looks like she's already got a foot in the grave. I hate to say that, but her health is, she's struggling with her health and everything. And it just floored me. Like it was like a punch in the chest. I mean, I loved seeing my mom.
I understand that.
And everything, but I mean, it was difficult. And I was like, damn, I don't like this. Like, this isn't fun. You know what I'm saying?
It's not
fun at all.
I I hear you. It really isn't. And it's one of those things too, where I think if you had been with her more frequently, the changes might have seemed more gradual. So it wouldn't have been
Yeah.
quite as as cut and dry or as
Oh, yeah.
shocking. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It
It's a
hit me
tough
hard.
thing.
I did
Yeah.
something today that our audience doesn't even know about.
Ooh.
Last weekend, Lynn Wallington had a lovely young lady on named Carlene, who is a hypnotist and regression therapist.
Ooh.
So for an hour and a half today, I went under.
You did a past regression?
Not a past
You
regression.
did a hypnotherapy session.
I did a hypnotherapy session.
Wow.
And I was out. So I have snippets of it. All right. I totally have snippets of it all. I don't remember the full thing. I know it was recorded because I gave permission for it to be recorded.
Oh, good. Yeah. So you can hear the ridiculous things you say.
and I got to tell you, I was not present when this happened.
Wow.
I was
awesome.
Completely gone. And then all of a sudden, I just, poof, I woke up. The being that was speaking from me literally stopped. And then the next second, I was like right there.
Dave came back
in a flash. It was like, okay, we're done. Bye. And hello. Yeah, it was nuts.
Interesting. Did you choose like a thing that you wanted? Because I've had hypnotherapy one time, and it was 20 plus years ago, and I did it to quit smoking. And it was like a friend of a friend who was studying to be a hypnotherapist, and I thought, well, I'll just, they were like, well, we'll do it for practice. And I went to this woman's house, and I thought, and I went in there thinking like, well, it's not going to hurt me, right? And I couldn't believe it. I absolutely could not believe that I came out of there, that I went out that quickly. She said some kind of visualization. She started counting, and I thought, oh, I'm completely cognizant of everything that's going on. And then the next thing I know, she was waking me up, and I was just like, what?
I was completely out. So I ended up channeling an alien guide of mine.
Rad.
Yes. He didn't give up his name, but he was, I don't want to say he was a jerk, but he was, he was very, very protective of who was trying to contact him. And why were they trying to contact him? And what was that all about?
Interesting.
Yes.
A hesitant entity.
It was a hentity. Yes.
Entity.
A hentity it was.
Another word we created. We got to have a whole dictionary by the end of the night.
Yeah, totally. So I got to go over the tape again. Now I was there, Carlene was there, and Lynn Wallington was there. So it was absolutely, it was kind of cool because I've never gone fully under like that before. Ever.
Very cool. The place where my mom got this session, actually, one of they do all kinds of readings and stuff. And I was like, tarot reading, I kind of do that myself. But they do have a past life regression. And when I was a kid or teenager, there was a friend of mine, his mother did past life regressions, and a couple of people I knew had done it. And I was actually always a little, I don't know. I was worried. I was like, I don't know if I want to do past life regression because I've had some pretty specific dreams, and I don't know that I was a very good person based on these dreams. So it's funny that you said that because I've been feeling it lately, and I think, oh, I think I might just do it just to see like what's going to come through. Maybe it's going to, maybe it'll be all malarkey, but maybe it'll be something like completely that I need to hear at the time that will kind of make things make sense. Oh, well, that's why I'm so like this or that. So I don't know. Now that you say that you've gotten this session, it makes me think that I should copy you.
Yeah. So anyways, I ended up channeling this extraterrestrial being, and we started asking, like, what's the blockage of the show? What is holding
Oh.
the show back? Is it me? Is it our programming? Is it the sign of the times with the way media works these days? And basically, you know what? It was a sign of the times, and that there are people listening who need to be listening. They are interested. They love the show, you know, but it's just a matter of timing and everything right now. And they wouldn't give a timeline that was not allowed to be answered, you know, but it all came down to free will and keep pushing and keep going hard. So I guess that's what I need to do.
Yeah. Keep going hard, Dave.
Yeah. What else am I going to do?
What else am I going to do?
I mean, heaven forbid, why sleep at night?
What are you going to mince into the next century? Of course not.
Mince. Very nice word. Very nice usage of the word mince.
Mincing into the next
Love it.
Era.
Love it.
Absolutely not. Yeah, you got to go hard. Well, that's pretty cool. Did you set that as a question? Was that your question? Or was that just what came through?
That's what came through. They were asking, and it just kind of fell out.
Yeah. Cool.
What am I supposed to do? So
what am I supposed to do?
Yeah. What am I supposed to do? But it's kind of cool. And we totally fell in love with Carlene, Lynn, and I on a business level, not on a you know, but we got to figure out how we can bring her more into the family here.
Awesome.
That's what we got to do, is figure out how to bring her more into the family.
Yeah, I'm feeling like you could be really going in like a mentalism direction, you know, like there's a lot of kind of cool topics to explore that.
Yeah.
Mind games.
but like when you're out, you are out. It is.
It's disconcerting.
Yeah, but you know what?
I
never felt like I wasn't in control. You know, except when the being, whatever it was speaking from me, because it's like channeling. Yeah. You know, you're kind of over on one side watching what is going on, kind of like I'm watching you right now.
Whoops, did I turn the right way? I turned the wrong way.
You turned the wrong way.
Everything's backwards on this. So.
Yeah, I had to check too. But yeah, it was definitely intense. And you know what? I'd do it again.
Yeah. What you should do is get hypnotized live on a show.
Well, I actually did.
Right?
I actually did on Saturday.
Oh, you did?
And people who want to check it out, they can go to our free archives at youtube.com/spacedoutradio.
Whoops,
I actually did get hypnotized on the air. But I would do it again. It's for science. It's totally for science. So I would totally do it again. You know, I'll be the guinea pig, the scapegoat, or whatever. I don't care.
I did something weird to my screen. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Let me clean it. I tried to clean it with my finger, which was a mistake.
Wait, you didn't go with your...
There we go.
There you go.
Okay. I think we're okay. There you go. All right. That's good enough. Good to break.
Varla Ventura is one of the best people in the business when it comes to monsters and banshees. And tonight we're talking werewolves because we are a day away from the full moon. And when the full moon happens, all those who have werewolves inside of them will run into the forest, rip their clothes off, and become hairy beasts of the night, ready to kill, maim, and gorge on anything they can. Do I have it right?
It's in a nutshell. And those that love them will follow them into the woods.
Wow. Hey, by the way, the crypto guru, Ronald Murphy, has entered the chat room on YouTube.
Oh, high stakes.
It's officially guru time. All right. So tell us about werewolves. Let's get into this.
All right. Well, we're just like jumping right in. Well, one thing that I've always found particularly fascinating about werewolves is that unlike a lot of the supernatural creatures, right? Like a vampire, for example. A vampire is very sort of human, But the werewolf has so many characteristics of a natural species, right? And it is a species that is feared or misunderstood even today, right? People think, oh, wolves are going to eat my cattle or whatever, and then they hunt them. So I think there's sort of a love-hate relationship with wolves in general. And I'm not saying myself, because obviously I'm a wolf lover, but I do think that as a cultured society, we don't have the symbiotic relationship that we once had with wolves. And as a result, we have greater fear of that unknown. And I think that adds to the lore and mystique and terror of something like a werewolf. But some of them, okay, so first of all, we got the full moon happening, which is happening, tomorrow night at...
Usually happens at night.
At 8:30 or something is when it's at its fullest. And I think we all know that there's reports of strange behavior on the full moon. I used to live in the Tenderloin in San Francisco, and I can guarantee you that on the full moon, very, very strange things happened. If we've got any nurses or doctors in the or paramedics in the chat here, I'm sure you can back me up on the higher incidents and reports and sort of like strange things happening, more people coming into the ER, just a lot more mania around the full moon. So right?
And you know what? My sister and her fiance are both longtime prison guards.
Oh.
And they literally have to prepare for every full moon.
Wow.
Because the prisoners, not all of them, but there are a handful of prisoners in each jail that absolutely go nuts. And they have no access to the moon. They have no access to anything. They literally...
no access to the moon. You don't even get a window.
Don't even get a window, you dirty, rotten scoundrel, right? But seriously, apparently in the prison, there's a big contingent of prisoners who absolutely change their entire attitudes on full moon.
Wow. Well, that doesn't really surprise me based on, all of the research that I've done and everything I've read about that sort of behavior around the full moon and people. So now if you think of that, right, that's just like quote unquote regular humans, right? There are those of us who are affected by the full moon. Some of us get more aggressive. I think that there are a lot of people that can get more aggressive. I personally feel really, obviously, like it's kind of hard to sleep on the full moon. I think that can also be the fact that it's really bright out. So it's a little harder to sleep when it's really bright out. But I feel very antsy myself on the full moon and also the days leading up to it. So, I can see that if I were contained somehow that I might start scratching at the walls to try and get out. So you have this in basically normal human behavior. And you can see, of course, we should organize a triple cage match with Werewolf Dogman and the Skinwalker. Yeah, who would win? Or are they all the same thing? So I think that you have that idea of just that kind of mania around the full moon. And when you get into... I like breakfast for dinner. I know you hate that.
That's
Dave,
terrible.
It's just,
terrible.
I know. I hope you still love me at the end of this.
Barely.
But when you have the idea of people getting completely crazed, ordinary, quote unquote, ordinary people having this kind of experience, one of my favorite writers, there's two authors that I always refer to when I think about werewolves, and in particular, the behavior around full moon and how that can be actually quite human and yet also very wolf-like. Elliot O'Donnell, who was a wonderful Irish writer who wrote a lot about banshees. He did a lot of ghost investigations. He was kind of part of that, society with Yeats. And O'Donnell was a little different, though, because O'Donnell had grown up in a haunted house and came from the point of view of a believer rather than a good Catholic boy who is trying to be convinced otherwise. So his writings tend to be a little bit more open, I find. As open as a, early 1900s writer can be. but he writes pretty extensively about werewolves, as does this man named Sabine Baring Gould, who was a reverend and who traveled all around England. And one of the things he did was he wrote Onward Christian Soldiers. He was this very kind of stand-up citizen. And he also, while he was traveling around trying to convert people, recorded werewolf stories and incidences and reports. And he wrote this insanely giant book all about werewolves and everything from streams that you drink from that can counteract lycanthropy to plants that you eat that can turn you into a werewolf, like wolf's bane, for example, is an herb, a plant that has toxic properties and can actually cause you to foam at the mouth and kind of work yourself into a frenzy. So there's a whole bunch of really cool stories in there of reports of seeing werewolves. But, and this might be perhaps like the most human and also the most frightening element of werewolfism or lycanthropy, he kind of brings to mind the idea that any of us at any given time could actually have that capacity to become a werewolf, because so many of us have had that moment of complete outrage or anger, and some of us have acted on that anger, and some members of society have gone far enough to act on that anger to the point to get them, in the prison where your sister is a guard. So you have people who have gone to this extreme. On the very extreme, you might have someone like a serial killer. And on the other side, you might have someone who would otherwise be dubbed like hormonal. And you kind of have this spectrum, but his argument, which I find quite convincing, is the idea that any of us, if you've ever gone so angry that you've seen red or you've blacked out, and we're talking like when you're sober, obviously, right? If you've ever gotten like so, and I know I have, it's happened probably to many people. I mean, it's not unusual to like get so angry. I don't think it is, to get so angry that you just, all you see red. There's a switch, right? There's a turning point. There's a part where you could snap. And his argument is that because of that, we all have inherited that ability to transform into a rabid beast. And so therefore the existence of werewolves is much more plausible.
I don't even think they exist. I hate to be the backbreaker on this one, but no, I don't think they exist. I think Dogman exists because I'm a weirdo that way.
Okay. Now you're going to have to convince me why you would believe in Dogman and not a werewolf.
Because I felt it.
Okay. But if you think that, what makes you think that Dogman isn't a werewolf?
Oh, this is where the crypto guru. I need him in my corner for this.
Okay.
But you know what? We are going to run out of time before we can actually
conclude
get there
this discussion.
Yeah, because we only have like 15 seconds before we are going to end up going to break here at the bottom of the hour. Disappointing to find out that Varla Ventura likes breakfast for dinner. But then
disappointing to find out Dave Scott doesn't believe in werewolves.
VarlaVentura.net. Not sure if she'll be here in the next half hour, but nonetheless, we will continue the show. Werewolves, we're talking about. Do you believe in them? Do you think they're real? Do you think people can actually transform like an ugly Decepticon? We'll find out with Varla Ventura when we come back on Spaced Out Radio. All right, we're back.
I see how it's going to be.
Stetson John, good to see you. Ackroyd, how's it going? Hello there, gorgeous Katie. What's happening? Creeping around her back door. That's what she wrote, not me. Let's see, who else did snuck in here when I wasn't looking? John Ballerman. We got a John Ballerman sighting, everyone. All right.
I'm reading the comments now.
Oh, yeah, you have
I'm
to.
going back through.
Katie says I'm looking good. Brock Williams, what's happening? He was there. Ross Lambda, how you doing? Guillermo, what is happening, my French friend? Viva les habitants. Even though I'm a Canucks fan. Mm-hmm. And
These are funny. My friend blacks out when super angry. We call it a grape snow cone moment.
Let me see here. Gabe Roca has arrived, everyone. The Gabe Roca has returned. I had tacos for dinner, just letting you all know. 2 nights in a row that Dave's pounded back tacos with hot sauce. Can Bigfoot's mind read? I think they can. Do I have proof? No. Oh, Jose. Look at Jose. Varla looks lovely, and Dave is looking good tonight. I don't know who Jose is hitting on, but it's working. Pick me. Let's see here. Devin, what's happening? Unconditional love and gratitude, my friend.
Your audience is very funny.
Yeah.
Very clever.
Yeah. You got to watch out for Mennonite Abe, though. Apparently, he has 6 toes on his feet. I know.
That's kind of cool.
It is kind of weird, though. David Paulson, welcome to the chat room. And who else came in here? Jeremy Jones, what's happening? Dave is going to get the taco shits. No, that's not till tomorrow. We're safe until tomorrow. Let's see here. Grandpa wants to know if they're hairy toes. I don't know. If UFO Toronto was here, we'd get his opinion because his nickname is Meaty Toes. Mr. Businessman, what's happening? Welcome to the channel. Where's your guitar pick there, Varla? I know you always got a guitar pick near you.
I have a guitar.
You want to jam?
Oh, it's very out of tune. I don't think so. I don't think you want to jam with me.
Oh, I'm terrible.
Well, I think I'd probably make you look good.
I don't know.
Pretty bad. It's pretty out of tune. Ooh, harsh. Ooh. Yeah. Well, that's, I don't know. I'm in like a lower level, so
you and I are probably even. We're probably even.
Evenly out of tune.
Yeah. I do know how to tune a guitar. So. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have 1 minute. We have 1 minute.
What do you want to do?
Bingo. Hopscotch.
Rochambeau. Are werewolves real? Rochambeau.
We're not Rochambeauing.
Do you call it that in Canada?
Yeah. It's French. Why wouldn't we?
That's what I'm saying.
Rochambeau. All right. We got 20-some seconds left. Big thank you to Apollo, to Gorgeous Jenny, Ed Clater, Chad, and Andrew for the awesome super chats tonight. It's a great way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. So thank you so much for taking the time to do so. Big thank you to all of our new subscribers who are tuned on in and enjoying the show. Big thank you to the Crypto Guru for listening and really promoting that breakfast is not a dinner food. We appreciate that. Here we go. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are, this beautiful planet we call Earth. Want to remind you that if you miss portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight with Varla Ventura's Our Cryptid World, varlaventura.net. All you got to do is walk into a bookstore, look for the Weird and Strange section, and there is Varlay's book right there. Books with the plural. Varla, welcome back.
Thank you.
All right. Werewolves. I don't believe they're real. You believe they're real. So there are people on this planet that will, on a full moon, change from human to dog.
Now, I didn't say that I believe they're real necessarily. As with any kind of supernatural creature, I think there's a lot of evidence to support that they are real. So I believe in most of the accounts of werewolves, and I do think that there are and were werewolves. However, I think that there are a lot of actual clinical cases that were misdiagnosed. In fact, someone had asked about lycanthropy. That is actually a disease. There are two versions of kind of medical diagnoses, right? So if you get lycanthropy, you believe that you are a werewolf, much as some people believe that they're vampires and will attack people. And we're not talking about the friendly vampires that I like to hang out with. We're talking about like people who have this psychological compulsion to feed on blood. And then you also have hormonal disorders that cause hair to grow all over your body. So I also think that people have, just as they have with witches for, thousands of years, place the blame on certain natural behaviors on something like a supernatural creature that is a werewolf. So I'm not arguing that on the full moon, your neighbor is going to turn into a werewolf, but I do believe that there's a possibility that that can take place. Also, I don't understand how Dogman can't be a werewolf. Like, what's the argument there that that's not the same thing as a werewolf? Because it's a hybrid creature, right? Is it that it doesn't transform? I mean, I'm not a Dogman expert, so I don't really know. But to me, that feels like it's in the same category as werewolves. So what's the belief there about Dogman specifically?
Well, I think Dogman is a creature that is running around the forest on either two legs or four legs, but does not change from human.
Doesn't change back
to animal.
Okay, so there's no shape shifting. There's no kind of transformation there. So so to me, that isn't necessarily a marking point of whether or not something. To me, they all kind of fall into that sort of cryptid canine category. And I think that it's entirely probably just as the wolf has been evolved into a toy poodle. It completely makes sense that something like a werewolf. There's also a lot of, original stories about werewolf-like creatures and shapeshifters that have transformed and been shunned from society, which is sort of something I was going to say earlier is that we have this relationship with werewolves where we kind of feel sorry for them, at least in a pop culture kind of way, versus something like a vampire that we might feel a little differently about. I think we feel sort of lustful toward the vampire, but the werewolf, we feel like, oh, there's this thing. I mean, maybe it's because Teen Wolf put this idea in our heads, but there's this thing where a creature a human or a human-like creature transforms without, beyond their own control. So I don't know.
Well, I can say this, that Todd here brings up a good point. Says, that's my argument with Dogman. How do you know they don't transform? No one has ever seen one long enough to know.
Well, that's a really good point. I mean, maybe that's why the sightings are so elusive, because it is actually transforming. We don't really know. I mean, that is both the beauty and the frustration of cryptids or any kind of like supernatural exploration, is that we all have had experiences, or some of us have had experiences. We've done research. We're going on instinct. That's what we're looking to find out in the night, right? Like what are these things? But it's pretty hard to, be super definitive about whether or not these things are all one thing. I think what's important to remember is, in the world of the supernatural, at least I believe this, in the world of the supernatural, which is also akin to the world of the fairy kingdom, or the otherworldly kingdom in which these creatures reside, that it isn't you're this and then you're that before my very eyes. We look at things so black and white and in such a linear fashion on this side of the fence, right? And this world, this real world, that we expect everything to fit into a category, a nice, neat little category. And one thing that I've learned, certainly in the folkloric record and in the experiences that I've had, and I've been talking with people and the people I've interviewed, is that there isn't one. You think of the fairy kingdom and you think it's these little things that flit about, but there are hundreds of different creatures that fit into these descriptions that go cross-culturally, from the duende to the gnomes. There's just all these different kinds of creatures that could technically fall into this cryptid, this kind of unknown category. And so when we really want to say it's exactly like this, like we saw in the movie in 1954, that is just, it limits us, it limits our belief. And when we do that, then we start closing our minds off and we can't actually see the things that are around us, like Bigfoot and the other kind of experiences that we want to have. I don't know. I mean, like, is Bigfoot necessarily not in that case? Like, I feel like it kind of fits in that category in a way as well, because it has this human beast thing going on. Maybe we're just trying to put a human face on it. Everybody likes to put cute little faces on the stuffed Sasquatch at the gift shop, but it's a much more complex thing than that. I don't know.
In your circles, which are weird people, have you ever met someone who claims to be a werewolf?
I haven't ever met someone that claimed outright to be a werewolf. I have met people that, as you know, I have met many people who have claimed to be vampires, lots and lots of witches, quite a few people who claim to be sort of otherworldly. I mean, I did meet a guy once who claimed to be a centaur, but honestly, I think he was just on drugs. So I can't, he transformed in his own mind. I've never met anyone that has claimed to be a werewolf. However, I have heard a couple of stories from people in my circles about having an experience where they felt like they were about to go beyond that sort of precipice that most of us can pull back from. And that was, around the full moon, and sort of like running amok in the forest. And the other thing to keep in mind is that just because werewolves are kind of, the idea is that they transform at the full moon and then they go and hunt and kill, that's not necessarily true. That just, when the transformation, historically, that's when the transformation is supposed to take place, because it's affecting the body and it's affecting the hormones. But they could be out there gallivanting about in the dark of the new moon, and we just don't think of it that way. So I just think there's a big connection between us as humans and the things that we know, evidentiary things that we know happen at the full moon, and the historic and folkloric record about werewolves. And it's enough to make you pause and think, well, I mean, why not? Why couldn't that happen? Although I think it's a complex thing. Again, I don't think it's linear, all this or all that. You also have people who are recording stories, who are going around recording these pagan rituals where people are donning, skins and dancing around fires, trying to invoke something by the light of the full moon. And that's recorded by the clergyman as some kind of, vicious beast, when in fact it's like a fertility ritual or something like that, right? So you take all those things with the grain of salt.
I get that. I do understand, and I get that. And we do have to take everything, but you know what? You can't have your own rules. I realize in 2021 society, you could be anything you want. If I decided tomorrow that I wanted to be an octopus, I would like duct tape like 6 other arms on me. I would. Then you could just call me an octopus, an octodave, or whatever, right? You can be anything you want these days.
Then you'd be a squid because you'd actually have 10 limbs, but you have like your 2 feet.
Darn it. Okay, I would make 4 more. How about that? 4 more. So I don't want to be a squid.
Okay.
Or which one? I want to be a cuttlefish.
Don't you want to be a kraken?
No, I want to be one of them cuttlefish, so that way I could go. Like, my skin can turn neon.
Cool.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll get my body tattooed in like glow in the dark ink, so that way when I go in front of a black light or something, I glow. That would be awesome. I'm a Cuddle Dave. That's what I'm going to be.
Cuddle Dave. Yeah.
A Cuddle Dave. All right. So anyways.
Everyone loves a Cuddle Dave.
But you can't. I struggle with this because you can't sit there and say, well, I want to be a werewolf, but I'm only going to be a werewolf in the definition that I want to be a werewolf. If you're going to be a werewolf, you got to do it right. You got to go kill, go bite a deer on the neck, maybe a rabbit. All right. Chase a few cats around, scare some kids, have to be teenagers. Okay. You got to do that stuff. Don't just sit there and say, well, you know what? I'm a vegan werewolf. No, you can't do that. Werewolves don't eat kale. Okay. They're not on a tofu diet with quinoa everywhere. I know it's pronounced quinoa. Okay. But I prefer quinoa. All right.
I'm putting my stake in the ground on this one.
Yeah.
Well, I think if there's actually, I would be very curious if this, to me, werewolves actually fall more in the same category from the point of view as a writer and a researcher. They fall more into the same category in terms of people willing to talk about it, people willing to believe in it. People love to read the stories as mermaids. Everybody loves a good mermaid story. Everyone likes to think about mermaids and sea serpents. But when you really get down to it, you don't get very many people coming forward saying, I saw this thing, I have this family story. And it's the same thing with werewolves. It's very, very, very obscure. Versus something like, seeing UFOs, paranormal experiences, unexplained cryptids that people have spotted in the night, the unusual Sasquatch, all of these kinds of things. There's more talk about those. I don't know why that is.
Right. So I get that, but you can't do it on your own terms. You can't just sit there and say, well, Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, I'm going to be a werewolf. And then during Lent, I'm not going to werewolf it up.
Yeah, I don't think that if you really were a werewolf, you would have that much control over it. I think it probably builds like it's like a serial killer who drowns, whatever. I don't even want, like.
That's a little harsh.
Well, I mean, it happens when they're a kid, and then this kind of like mentality stays in place, right? So maybe there's something to being a werewolf along, you're born with this desire, and then it's not until you're 45 that you finally just, go for it and take your shirt off and run into the woods. I don't know. I don't live in the woods, so.
Well, I do, and I don't see any werewolves out there.
Well,
I mean, there's a lot of strange.
For you now.
There's a lot of strange stuff that happens in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
Not gonna lie. I don't know what is going on in the woods. I'm sure there's a lot more going on in the woods that we can't even process. Whether it's Bigfoot, Dogman, gnomes, wood nymphs, anything. I do little people. That First Nations people talk about.
Right.
I think there's
things
a lot
you've
of stuff.
seen, things you have specifically seen and been unable to explain, right? So my argument is just like, why draw the line at werewolves? that to me, that it just seems like, drawing a line there. I mean, sure, we've all got to have our boundaries. I understand that. But when you draw the line there, it's someone else could very well turn around and say, well, I don't believe in Sasquatch. So
that happens all the time.
Yeah, it happens constantly.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
Don't get those people. I work with a couple of them.
Non-believers.
Yeah. What do you do? By the way, Goddess Michelle says, hello, Varla Ventura. Love you. And she'll have to listen to the episode tomorrow in the archives because she is working tonight.
Okay. Well, love you too. And thanks for chatting.
Yes. I agree.
Goddess Michelle.
I agree. And hello to Merle in the chat room. Merle. Where were you last month with Varla Ventura as our guest? Oh, no, taking a day trip, trying to become a werewolf. That's where you were, a vegan werewolf.
Come on, Merle, back me up here.
Exactly. We've got 7.5 minutes before we got to go to break at the top of the hour. Varla Ventura is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. VarlaVentura.net is her website. And I got to ask you, sticking with werewolves here, where do we see the concentration of these alleged sightings happening?
Two kind of main regions, at least from what I've garnered, are a lot of the Scandinavian and Nordic countries, especially with some of the traditional tales, like the lycanthropic streams. Of course, we have to remember that we had the berserkers, right, who would basically don themselves in skin and take some kind of ephedrine-based plant and work themselves into a frenzy and go into battle, right? This was like the Norse trick to intimidate their opponents. But also, I think North America, you have some of the original werewolf stories coming from Wisconsin, not terribly far from where we see a lot of the Dogman sightings, just going full circle here. But you do have quite a few sort of original stories about werewolves and shape-shifting and that kind of transformation. So I'd say like North America and Scandinavia. But of course, you do have some in Russian folklore as well.
Now, are they mainly in populous areas or in smaller rural towns?
I mean, I think to be a werewolf, one must have a good stand of woods. So it's probably going to be, a lot more, a little town in the middle of a big woods. In the Scandinavian countries, well, especially in the northern parts of Finland, you actually have the tundra. So you have like the kind of, snowy Arctic wolf up there. And that's where you get a lot of the pretty intense werewolf stories about people being torn limb from limb. And, there's also the idea that it is someone who has sort of lost their, gone the shining in the winter, right? That someone has actually lost their mind. That's sort of what the Wendigo really is. It's this a human who has gone to the other side and is insatiable and is like insatiably hungry, often who cannot handle the pressures of and the starvation of winter. So I think that the werewolf also comes out of that. And it's completely plausible to imagine somebody getting to this extreme, extreme hunger, extreme emotional state that would kind of go into a frenzy and possibly attack the other people in their family or their clan or their village or where, depending on what part of the world it is, and then be sort of banished for that and then feared and looked for upon the full moon. So there's, a lot of stories that involve that kind of dead of winter. And then when things defrost, you can find those streams that are the antidote and the plants that are the antidote to this kind of frenzied behavior. But I know we don't have a ton of time left, but there are some actual like scientific reasons that we know that we can attribute to werewolves, one of which is ergot. Now, ergot poisoning, which was a mold that was on rye bread that was ground up, is basically responsible for the witch trials. in the 1600s throughout Europe, because people were basically taking this and it was causing hallucinations. And they were saying, oh, you know, little Sally so-and-so is flying on a broom and there's werewolves in the woods. And so everything was sort of being blamed on these supernatural creatures. Now, food for thought, were people actually, you know, of course they're having these hallucinations, but were these hallucinations causing them to see things that were there that they couldn't see otherwise? I think that's kind of the question about going into that altered state. Are we just able then to see things that some people can see without any kind of ergot poisoning?
So people who think they're werewolves, as we got 3 minutes to go, what are some of the symptoms that we should look inside of ourselves to see if we are part werewolf?
Itchy, angry, excessively emotional, hair growing in places that it hasn't grown before, cravings, such as cravings for blood or very raw meat, and basically kind of just misanthropic behavior that makes you wish that you could, you know, do something a little more than punch your neighbor.
Play hockey.
Yeah. I mean, so
I'm
there
a
you
werewolf.
go. We have a lot
I'm
more
a werewolf
vices now, right? We have vices. Yeah. Play
I like
hockey,
my
punch
steak
someone.
I like my steak medium rare. I love body checking someone into the boards, and if you got to give them a little shot, you have to. All right. I got hair growing in my ears since my 40s started.
Okay, see?
That was a little odd. What was the other
You're
ones?
going through changes.
Well,
Itchy. Did I say itchy?
I'm always itchy. I've always been itchy.
Extreme emotion and anger and, you know, desire to rip people limb from limb.
I'm Ukrainian who suffers from depression and anxiety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm a werewolf.
Right. You're a werewolf. I think I'm glad that next time you go into trance session, right? Next time you go into hypnotherapy, I think that the truth is really going to come out and you're going to be whole with your Ukrainian werewolf self.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Boom.
Yeah. Nope. Not at all.
No, maybe
not at all.
Maybe.
Not feeling it. I'm not feeling the urge to run into the forest and tackle deer and bite them on the neck or the back of the neck, much like cougars do.
Fair enough. You're safe for now.
Yeah, I don't want to wrestle with bears, Bigfoot.
No. Or alligators or...
No alligators up here.
No. I mean, I don't want to wrestle with alligators. I'm just saying.
And no big snakes here either, which is nice.
That's great. Mm-hmm. I just learned there are no poisonous spiders in this area that I live. I've lived all my life with life-threatening spiders right at my fingertips. And here I am, you know, thinking that they were everywhere, and apparently they aren't.
Nice. It's a Mandela effect. That's what it is. Varla Ventura, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we are going to go to break here at the top of the hour, and we always love it when Varla Ventura is here as our guest, as she appears once a month here on Spaced Out Radio for our Cryptid World. My goodness, I'm starting to sound like Elmer Fudd. Our Cryptid World with Varla Ventura, the queen of the cryptids. We'll be back right after this. We're going to get into some ghost stories, find out what's happening on the evil realms of the paranormal, because that's what we do around here when Varla's here. It's all dark and macabre. But she loves it that way. VarlaVentura.net is her website. We'll be back after this. All right. I'm going to run my doggies out.
Okay.
I'm going to run my doggies out. You can talk if you want. I haven't muted you.
Oh, I said okay.
I know. That's what I figured that. Oh. You can hang out with the audience. You can read their chat, right?
Yes, I can.
Yeah,
I put my glasses on. Yeah.
I'll be right back.
Right.
Varla Ventura.
Okay. Okay, so I did this last time. This is what I'm going to say. I did not log in properly with the way that Dave sent me the link. And so if I go over to the YouTube to actually correspond with you, last time I disconnected. So when Dave came back from break, I wasn't on here, which is not good. So I'm going to try and do it right this time so I can actually chat with you. But I can't guarantee that I'm not going to bump the wrong thing here. So let me see. We go here. We go here. Okay. Found it. No. Okay, can I mute this? Yes. Okay, let's see. No. That didn't work. Well, that didn't work. Didn't work. Ah! I didn't think ahead. Let's see. God. Really showing my age here, you guys. Okay, let's see. Okay. I think I got it. We just got to keep this muted. Okay. I did it. I think. Hold on. Oh, yeah. Nate, that would have been really easy. You could just speak out responses to the chat if you want. That would have been a lot better. Okay. I'm going back to that. American Werewolf in London had the best. Yeah, still pretty cool. Okay. I made it. Just in time for Dave to come back. Dave's
back.
I navigated the technical difficulties, figured out how to chat, and then one of your much smarter than me members here said, you can just speak out loud to the chat because, So, yeah.
Hey, there's Super Ben from UFO Garage. By the way, Ben, yours in Joe's hair was looking fantastic tonight on your show. The lovely and talented Angela Wilbert, thank you for coming on in. And thank you. Who else is here that showed up? Varla Ventura is in the chat room, everyone. Varla Ventura, Howard S., good to see you. Smoky Mountain Wanderer, nice to have you here. And let's see, who else is here? I think we're caught up. All right. Big thank you to Apollo, to Jenny, Ed, Chad, and Andrew for the amazing super chats. It's a great way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. Thank you to all the regulars who are in our chat room, including Mr. Cowley. Da, da, da. Welcome back to the show. Oh, Mr. Cowley loves his spaced out radio. Ross Smith, how you doing? And
you're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Thank you to everyone tuning us in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. It's thiocoprolite. It's thiocoprolite is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Howard in our chat room.
No, you can never leave again,
Varla,
Dave.
horn-rimmed glasses, deep V-neck blouse, and leaning way into the camera. Thought this was an OnlyFans page for a second there. Wow.
Wow. You can't leave, Dave. Don't leave. Don't leave again.
Oh, we love our audience here on Spaced Out Radio. Thank you so much for everybody tuning us in. Varla's website, varlaventura.net. You can find all of her incredible books at any major bookstore and online as well. Varla, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show. We love you here.
Thank you.
Yes, we were talking werewolves. Now we're going to switch over to paranormal and the dark side, because everybody is always out there. I want a paranormal experience. I want ghosts to run through my house. I want to be able to communicate with the other side. That would be so cool. But for some, it really isn't, is it?
I mean, I think that it can be quite frightening and disturbing for a lot of people, especially when they don't necessarily identify as someone who can see ghosts or experience things. Oftentimes that first experience can be the one that kind of makes or breaks whether or not you'll stick with the paranormal. You know, if you have a very terrifying experience, it might, you might be a hot stove toucher, right? You might actually continue to explore the paranormal to try and find out what happened. But for other people, things just kind of come and go. I myself am a little bit more of the curious person. My paranormal experiences have all been, knock wood, but actually, I don't really want to knock wood because I wouldn't mind if they were a little scarier. Most of my paranormal experience, all of my paranormal experiences really have been not particularly frightening. Definitely a few that were more on the scary spectrum and the confusing spectrum than the, beautiful, comforting spectrum. But I have surrounded myself by people who seem to be magnets for the paranormal. And so I'm always fascinated when there are more disturbing things at play. So, yeah, I mean, like, for example, my friend, I think I mentioned her last time, she lives in a house in Portland that is not only is it haunted, but it's just seems to be getting more and more haunted the more time she spends there, to the point that, there's strange noises in the basement. She called the police thinking there was someone in her basement, and there wasn't anything down there when they went there. So things are missing, objects are moving around. It's kind of really been ramping up. And actually, I know that scares her, although she's a very strong person. So she tries to kind of, work through it rationally. And she's been surrounded by ghosts all of her life. But when you see a, 9-foot bent-necked shadow creature passing behind you as you're looking into the mirror, it's pretty hard to be like, yeah, I'm okay with this. Right? I mean, kind of scary.
It is tough. It is tough. Well, let's be honest. That's just not normal.
No, it's not.
It's totally not. But for a lot of people, the paranormal isn't about the little things that go bump in the night or the car keys that go missing from the counter. You look all over your house and 10 minutes later, they're back on the counter. It's not like that. I mean, from everything from poltergeist activity to being pinned down in your bed, there is a dark side to the paranormal activity that's out there.
Oh, sleep paralysis is probably one of the things that is most consistently reported and is the most terrifying. And I've certainly experienced a variation of it. I've interviewed many people who have had that, and probably a lot of people listening tonight have experienced some degree of sleep paralysis, essentially waking up and not being able to move, frequently coupled with a sighting or some kind of entity being in the room. Actually, I learned a long time ago that sleep paralysis can be that moment in which you have not returned. If you believe in astral travel and being able to leave your body and go into the astral plane or whatever, there's a time when your soul is kind of like you're going back into your body, and sometimes you can get caught in between. And you start to sort of have consciousness before you're fully returned, and that you're unable to move. And that also, you can also bring things back with you and then see sightings and entities, which I've heard the full spectrum of everything from something very shimmery to something very dark and full of scribbles that kind of had a sort of an electromagnetic energy that seemed to pop as it crept down the hallway. There's a lot of things that are pretty pretty scary.
What causes a lot more of that negative paranormal energy? Is it the spirit itself, or is it the energy in the house that's brought in by the people who are there?
Yeah, or is it the people themselves, right?
Right.
It's probably a case by case scenario. I mean, I think for some people they can be attractants. And I think with things from the spirit realm, there are certain people who are more open to that communication, whether it's willingly or just by gifts that they were born with and may not even be aware of. They can be attractants. There are also people who are more vulnerable to that because of being empaths, because of being maybe having these kind of gifts. And I'm just going to close out this other window because I'm convinced I'm going to unmute the YouTube and just mess everything up. So, and then I also think that I kind of believe in all of the different things. I don't think there's just like one kind of ghost or one kind of haunting. I think that a place can be haunted, that a place can, have residual energy. It can have, the memories of horrific things. I think that restless ghosts and hungry ghosts can be, unrequited deaths, basically either unavenged deaths or sometimes just non-ritualized deaths, where the body wasn't properly cared for or the person wasn't sort of shepherded into death. And so in a, meaningful fashion. And so those can cause hauntings. So those aren't necessarily going to cause anger and scratchings and things like that. Interestingly, there are a lot of accounts in the fairy kingdom of things that sound very much like poltergeists, where you might wake up and you have scratches and bruises, or, your bed is being shaken, or just things that are a little more violent, where they actually interfere with your body. And that has always made me wonder, are we actually describing the same thing? Only in, the 1600s in Ireland, we called it a hobgoblin. And in, 2021, we call it a poltergeist. Is it actually kind of the same entity or unseen thing that takes different forms? But there are a lot of things that can cause it. Another thing about kind of the dark and frightening side is that I think that we frequently dismiss when children have paranormal sightings and put the idea into their heads that it's just a dream, that it's nothing there, because our instincts are kind of like, okay, let's just comfort them so they're not screaming and crying in the night. And by doing so, we're actually saying to them, hey, you what you're seeing, which you may well be seeing, you can't tell me about it. Pretend it's not real. And that can actually cause more fear than just saying, okay, tell me about it. Describe it. Maybe it was like great Uncle Harry coming to say hi or whatever. I don't know, So there's kind of a history of that fear. I'm not saying that is why people have negative experiences, but I do think that that's why the paranormal can get a negative view in general, because we go into it thinking like, I would never want to be in stay overnight in a haunted house, or I don't know.
What's a spooky story that's been brought to your attention regarding a negative entity?
Ooh, so many. Okay, well, there's been a lot of, so as I said, for me, most of my experiences, they might sound kind of scary to other people, but they weren't particularly negative or scary to me. I've certainly been tapped and kind of smacked in the head, and there's been things that have sat down on a seat next to me and on my bed, and certainly heard a lot of things, and actually had a few visual sightings of dark shadows moving and things like that. But none of those things really gave me the really scared me, made me think, oh, I got to move out of here right now. We're selling this place. But one of the scariest stories, and I'll probably get it a little bit wrong, is because he told it to me so long ago. And I've told a few of his other stories. His stories are always in my books. He's a really good friend of mine. I call him Pirate Chris for good reason. And he's the one who I've told a story a few times about, or at least once on the show, about him being at his property and hearing this crazy moan that kind of came up from the hillsides. And
I don't recall this one.
You don't recall that one? Well, I'll tell a couple of his, because his are the scary ones. He's a person that is not necessarily easily scared, and yet very terrifying things can happen to him. And I think he's just a communicator. I think he has a lot of psychic ability and natural kind of magnet toward the unusual. He's an archaeologist by trade. So first of all, just to go back to the moaning. So he's on his property one night, and he had bought this property. He had property that he lived next to his grandparents, and he'd had that property since he was a kid. Basically, since he was like a teenager, he had been paying off this property, but it was a property where he had grown up right next to it. And then he had acquired the next piece over. So my point in saying that is that he was very, very, very familiar with these woods, right? These were not woods that he hadn't spent a lot of nights in. I mean, as a little boy, he had combed every inch and, stabbed every tree and done all of the things that a little boy growing up in the forest does. So he's very familiar with this territory. And so he was just on his property one night, and he was cleaning brush, and on the property there's a well, and there's a wellhead. So there's kind of like a little house type thing where he had been staying. He would clear out the property. They were fixing to build the house, and he would clear it out, and then he would kind of stay the night, and they would like work the weekend, and then he would go back, on Monday with his wife, and they would, just go about their weekly work and whatever. So he's out there, he's by himself, and he's spent all day clearing brush, and he's going to settle down for the evening, and he hears this moan. It is this insane sound that at first he thinks that a friend of his has pulled up at the bottom of his driveway and is putting all of his, is playing like a synthesizer, this discordant weird sound, or an animal is mating or an animal is dying, or something is happening, but he can't quite figure out what it would be. And then it stops. And when it stops, it's complete absence of sound. There's no reverberation. There's nothing coming up from down below. It's just completely truncated sound. And so he thinks, well, that was weird. I've never heard anything like that, but I'm going to go about my business. Not a few seconds later, it starts again. And this time it's closer. This loud, outrageously deep moaning, so loud that it's guttural, and he can kind of feel it. And so at this point, he's, 6'4" man, kind of starting to like lean back into this doorway a little bit and kind of look around, and not quite sure if this is something he should stay outside and figure out what it is. So he kind of steps back into the the little casa he has there, and the sound stops, and it stops again, completely truncated, no reverberation, no kind of like any essence of the sound anymore. So that doesn't make any sense to him. And then it comes a third time, just a few seconds later, and this time it is right outside the casa, and the bottles on, little things on the windowsill, the glass is rattling. He can feel it. He can feel that there's something kind of surrounding this little cabin, and he's just kind of sitting there like, well, what? I'm not sure what this is. I don't know what to do. This is really, really strange. And then it stops. It goes away. He never hears it again. He actually can't tell me this story when his wife's around, because they live on that property now. And she's like, I don't want to hear that story again. It's nope. Because she spends a lot of time alone on that property. So he, a couple days later, chats up a neighbor, and the neighbor down the hill had heard something that he described kind of similarly, that he heard it once, and it ended with a splash in the pond. So to this day, we've looked up all kinds of, he's an archaeologist, and he specializes in indigenous Californian cultures. So he's looked up all kinds of things, and he's, talked to the elders, and we still don't know what it is. So that's kind of that we just call it the thing that moaned in the woods, and we still aren't entirely sure what it is. And he hasn't heard it again to this day. I have actually, and of course the whole story is even better, because when he told me, I was on that property, the house was mostly built, and guess where I was sleeping? In that little casa. So of course, it made it even scarier. But he told me a couple stories years before that about being a very young kid, very young, like under 5, I think, and seeing what I can only sort of equate with anyone who's listened to, like, a lot of the Jim Harold campfire stories or anything like that, or the ghost to ghost stuff, will be familiar with some of the descriptions of the shadow man. But at the time, when he had told me the story, we didn't really have as many descriptions. So it kind of sounds like a shadow man, but the thing is it wasn't just like a black, outline of a man-like thing. It was actually a person in a shadowy person in shape that had electrical currents, kind of like, he called it, it was like it was scribbled. It was like this creature had just been sort of scribbled, and it followed him. And he was very little, and it would follow him around the house, and he would hide in his closet, and it would actually recur and come back night after night after night, and really tormented him for a long time. But then when they left that house, he didn't see it anymore. So we kind of speculated that it was something that was related to that place. But, he was so little. Yeah, it was. That is pretty. I mean, can you imagine if your child came to you and said, not only did I see a shadow, but I saw like a scribble monster that wants to like chase me down the hall and get me? Like, that's pretty scary. So, yeah.
Are a lot of these angry ghosts tied to the property or the home? So, for instance, let's say you have somebody who died 100 years ago, and they're the person who, logged all the trees, built the foundation of the house, lived there for 20 years, died, and now the home has gone through numerous hands over the decades because, let's face it, people move. And now the person is just really upset because, or the ghost is really upset because he doesn't like how they've painted the walls or how they've, redone the gutters or whatever. Do we get a lot of that?
I've heard a lot of stories about people kind of saying that there's like some people can live in harmony. They'll just say, oh, that's a little old lady who used to live in this house before. So I've heard a lot of stories of people describing kind of, this sort of acceptance. But also I think that there have been quite a few where, for whatever reason, just like people, right, that ghost just did not get along with the person occupying. I won't name names, but there were a couple places where there was a guy who had a really severe drug addiction, and people had lived harmoniously with this. It was one of those houses where people lived, and then the next group of people kind of moved in, and it was just like a perpetual rental house. And there had been accounts of this ghost for many, many years. Most of the people who lived there had this, like, oh yeah, that's just the ghost of the yellow house. And there was one person in particular who had a very, very, very intense drug addiction. And that person had some pretty negative experiences, but everyone in the house actually started experiencing things such as instead of something just moving, things would fall and hit you, fall off a shelf and hit you on the head. Not like constantly, but enough that if you were alone in the house, you kind of, kept all the curtains open and things like that. Now, none of those things happened to me specifically, but I do remember being in that house and having a couple of really positive experiences over the years. And so in terms of paranormal encounters, or like kind of seeing or waking up in the night to go use a bathroom and you kind of see this ghostly figure in the kitchen or whatever. But I don't know what happened after that. Once that person moved out, I don't know if they just like tried to do an exorcism or really what happened. Because I lost touch with a lot of those people for probably really obvious reasons. So I don't know. I mean, I think there's definitely behavior can exacerbate a negative experience with a ghost or an entity.
You know what I was just thinking while you were saying that? How weird would it be if you have the ghost of the original owner of 100-year-old house, and then some ghost from the house being like 50 years old comes on in, and those two ghosts are now battling each other because they hated each other when the second ghost lived in the house. Maybe they smoked in it or whatever, and the other one didn't like it. I don't know. Or maybe they ripped up the hardwood floors that everybody prays is underneath their carpet or linoleum. I don't know. I mean, but that would be weird.
Yeah, like a ghost angry at the new ghost resident, right? Because
absolutely.
So
hold that thought. Okay. Hold that thought, because if you got a story about that, I want to hear it.
I kind of do, yeah.
Excellent.
I kind of do.
Varla Ventura is here tonight on Spaced Out Radio. VarlaVentura.net. You can find all of her books online or in any major bookstore. Our Cryptid World with the lovely and talented Varla Ventura, who even did her hair for the show tonight. Looks fantastic.
I did it wrong.
We'll be back with more Spaced Out Radio after this. And we're clear. Hector, what's going on down in Mexico, my friend?
Oops.
I heard the guitar.
Oops.
Uh-huh.
I hit it. All right. I am not a she-wolf. Like a Megatron ghost. Good times.
That's how we roll around here.
Mm-hmm.
Varla Ventura.
Just Taking off your headphones, huh?
Yeah, it's that time. If I curl my hair up like that, I look like Will Ferrell in Zoolander.
Nice.
I invented the keyboard tie.
You could do that for Halloween.
Yeah. My punk hair right now.
Could be fun.
My grunge rock hair. Hold on. There we go. Mennonite Abe. Dave wonders why he can't get to the next level with this crowd rolling with him.
No, this is the next level.
Dave needs gnarly wooden barrettes.
Cool. You should get like a gnome headband or something.
I got a gnome.
Yeah, but like a headband, you know?
I can put my headband on if you want. Do you want me to put my bandana on? Would that make you feel good?
Yeah, do it.
All right.
And we'll see who's really watching.
Nobody's really watching. The things I do to make my listeners or my guests happy. Here you go, Varla.
Am I going to regret this?
No.
Oh my God. Now you look like a wrestler. What does that say?
It's Appetite for Democracy from Guns N' Roses. Hold on. I can't even see if I'm straight or not. Oh, there we are. Oh, wrong way. There we go.
Oh, I'm glad it's not just me that gets it backwards.
Yeah.
All right.
Hold on. My hair looks like shit now. What the hell is that?
You might want to take it off.
Good.
Okay.
I'm good. There we go. Now I'm good. Just for you, Varla Ventura.
All right.
Just
now
for
we're ready.
you. Yeah.
Gnarly wooden barrettes, be damned. You've got the headphones. I mean, the headband and the headphones.
We can't handle this level of schmexy. David, Abe, do you actually listen to the Chinese Democracy album? In my opinion, Chinese Democracy is actually the number 2 album behind Appetite for Destruction. It is a fantastic album. It doesn't get the credibility that it deserves because it was made with all the fill-ins and not the original members. But it is a great album. And you got to give it a try. Just let yourself, I had to let myself just, ooze into it. And I was like, it's like when you stick your toe in testing the water to see if it's cold or not. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, it's cold. And then you pull it out. Then you're like, well, I'm going to try it again. Then I'm going to try it again. And that's what you got to do. You got to do that. And I'll tell you, there are some fantastic songs on Chinese Democracy. It's fantastic. Now, the funny part about it is, Slash cannot play the Chinese Democracy songs. He sounds absolutely terrible trying to play the songs because it's not his style of guitar. And I think he absolutely butchers them, and it's too bad. That's why I still believe they needed to keep Ron Bubblefoot Thal in GNR or DJ Ashba or both of them. But yeah, that's the truth. Chinese Democracy was a great album. Fantastic album. We got 26 seconds left. Thank you to Apollo, Jenny, Ed Clater, Chad, and Andrew for the amazing super chats. Remember, it's a great way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. So thank you. And Varla Ventura is going to join us here again. I don't know why. She eats breakfast for dinner. So here we go. We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight with Varla Ventura, Our Cryptid World, a new monthly feature we have here with one of the greatest writers ever when it comes to the cryptid world. You can find all of her books on our website, varlaventura.net, or in any major bookstore. Thank you, Varla, for coming on in.
Oh, well, you're welcome. Thank you for having me, in spite of my preference for high-protein dinners.
Yeah, we're going to have to talk about that over some drinks in Vegas.
Maybe in Vegas. Yeah, we'll have to settle this score.
Yeah. It'll come down to, honestly, it's going to come down to roulette. That's what it's going to come down to.
Yeah, we'll let the wheel decide.
Exactly.
And then we'll both agree to just, from there on out, accept that as law.
Unless I lose.
No, we have to agree that whatever happens,
all right,
we won't critique the others' choices.
All right. Sounds good. And she will be giving lessons on how to eat breakfast foods for dinner, whereas I will be protesting with giant placards. We're talking ghosts and scary ghost stories. Poltergeist activity is something that I've never seen. And there's a lot of questions on what poltergeist activity is. There are many who believe that it is actually attached to the person in the house and their own energies bring it out, that it's not actually a spirit doing it. What do you think a poltergeist is? And do you have any poltergeist stories you can share with us?
Well, I've probably heard a lot of the same theories that you have, that poltergeists in particular can really be brought out by teenagers. That's a very common belief that a teenager, or I guess because we think of teenagers as being full of angst and trying to figure things out and having a lot of frenetic energy, and they can fall prey or be kind of a conduit for a poltergeist. I don't think that is necessarily consistent across the board. I think that there's been some movies that have kind of, specifically, poltergeist, kind of playing that up, the idea that it kind of feeds through kids or teenagers. So in my experience, poltergeists aren't quite as, quite as aggressive as in some of the movies that we've seen. However, I have had stories of things being thrown across the room, chairs in particular being pushed or moved. We think that my friend that I was talking about earlier, that she has a poltergeist of some kind because of the several things that have happened. So this is a person who has had either lived in many haunted places or has had spirits follow her, or all of the above. And so she has experienced a lot of paranormal encounters. And we were talking about at what point we feel like this kind of changed and started maybe slipping into that poltergeist category. And the moving of objects in particular. So that I think is something that kind of takes it from it being a haunting to something a little more active and maybe a little more aggressive, like a poltergeist. Also more physical contact. So there have been numerous times of late where she has woken up feeling like either something was hovering right above her and holding her down. And these things are kind of coupled with one time she woke up actually in another room and wasn't really sure how she had gotten there. And This wasn't something that was medication related or other kind of, this was very, very abnormal. So, and just a lot of kind of something that might be veered a little bit more in the threatening category versus something that might just be like, oh, okay, yeah, there's a ghost here. So when you were talking before about like the ghost battling the ghost, we have been also speculating. So as I said, she's someone who has been haunted many times. I've included her stories in almost all of my books. I've got at least one Alex Benedict story in there along with Pirate Chris, because those are kind of like the two people that I constantly interview, and we have a lot of discourse about the paranormal. And we wondered if, and this was her belief, that she believes that she actually has a ghost that travels with her. There has been paranormal activity in every place she has been since she was a young kid. So she believes she does have a spirit that is attached to her. She also believes that there have been other spirits because she's seen other things and the behavior has been slightly different. For example, she once had a spirit that used to move things around, but it was all in play. And we believe that was a spirit of a little child that was messing around with her and turning her sugar bowl over and kind of more mischievous. So then when you have to go and move it, the sugar spills out all over the counter, of course. So at this house where all of this kind of really intense stuff has been picking up in the last year, we have been talking about the possibility that her ghost is actually battling this sort of negative entity that's in the house. And it's battling actually to protect her. And so one of the freakiest things that happened was, it was straight out of like some kind of little short film. But we were texting each other one night, and she said her dog was really freaked out and was wouldn't leave her side and was staring, and she just sent me a picture on her phone of like, he's just staring in this direction. And so I'm looking at the picture, and of course I'm zooming in to see, and it's kind of like she's sitting on the couch, and there's like this view where she can see the doorway to the hall and then the doorway to the other bedroom, just a crack open. So I'm zooming in on the picture to see like, is there something in the bedroom, because the dog's directly staring and growling at it. And I look and I see a crystal skull candle holder that she has. I see it on the floor. And I think in my mind, I think, oh, maybe he's seeing the light glint off that, and that's kind of freaking him out. You know how dogs, like, they think someone's coming up to the house when they start to growl. And so I said, well, is he just growling at that candle holder? And she said, what are you talking about? And then the next text was like, the giant OMG, I don't know how that got. So this skull candle holder, she didn't see it. She had just sent this picture, and then I looked at it. I just thought she had put it there. Well, in fact, she hadn't put it there at all. It had been on the table in the other room. So this was when we kind of started thinking, wow, this is pretty intense, that these things are moving around. That was kind of a new thing. And that's when we kind of started wondering, especially with some of that, again, sleep paralysis and more aggressive kind of frightening behavior, things that were actually scaring her and making it difficult for her to sleep, waking up, not being able to breathe. Just some really intense activity there. So we were wondering if there's a ghost battle, sort of a paranormal battle going on where her ghost that has followed her around, or her spirit, whatever this is trying to protect her from this freaky, angry thing that is very angry and seems to really be interested in her. So,
all right. Question coming from Mennonite Abe, who is asking, Varla, have you ever heard of ghost insects?
I have not. I've heard of ghost cats and ghost dogs. I had a ghost cat in one of my apartments, but I've never heard of ghost insects. It's not, why not, right? They have such short lifespan. Wouldn't they just be crawling everywhere all the time?
I have a good story.
Okay.
All right. So at the museum where we did our tours prior to COVID, one of the idiots who is on the board that runs the museum, he doesn't believe in the paranormal. And even though we have raised $14,000 for this museum over 3 years, he's had the audacity to say that because he was a firefighter for 35 years, he knows everything and the paranormal doesn't exist. And therefore, all the photographs that our guests have taken over the years have doctored them. We doctored the photos. So, anyways, the museum had this old jail cell. And in the Clydesdale barn, he had this really idiotic idea, an idiot with an idiotic idea, to put the jail cell up, to tear down a couple of the horse stalls, including one where we actually may have caught the face of a ghost horse, and turn it into a jail cell. And their theory was we could lock people in there and we could get them out for charity with donations. Well, the first 4 months that this jail cell had been in there, they raised a whopping $68. You know, to hell with the $1,000 a month we were bringing in for a tour, because the $68 was more important over 4 months. That's good mathematics right there. Yes, I am bitter. Anyways, we investigated that. I brought my buddy Merle up, and we investigated it. And we had 2 others with us. They were standing in the jail cell, and Merle and I were standing about 8-9 feet back from the jail cell, and we watched this giant shadow spider crawl along the ceiling. Like, this shadow spider was at minimum 4 feet long to 5 feet long. And we watched it crawl along the ceiling right in front of the jail cell. And then it went into where this tarp was. And then it scurried back, like a spider just, and it was gone. Yeah, it did that. And we were freaking out. Now, obviously, when you put a jail cell in an area, it is going to bring negativity, because what is a jail cell? It's not positive. Nothing positive happens in jail.
Right.
And I'll tell you, that jail cell absolutely ruined the barn of all the paranormal activity. All of it. And it's sad. But I will never forget seeing that 4 foot to 5 foot spider like shadow being crawling on the ceiling right in front of it.
That's really big.
Yes.
That's not like a tarantula.
No.
That's a massive, many-legged entity.
Yeah.
Scurrying out of there.
Yeah. It was.
Wow.
It was completely, and we knew it was tied to the jail cell. We knew it was, and we think it was an entity who didn't like the fact that we were poking and prodding around the jail cell.
It's like, I'm out of here.
No, he was like, I'm going to scare you guys out of here.
Did it scare you?
No, but whatever that being was in there, and it's probably still in there, literally has taken every other ghost in there and just pushed them away.
Oh, interesting.
It's literally cleared the facility.
Yeah. So another ghost battle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
wasn't that the same place that you told me that someone came in and tried to exorcise or did exorcise?
Well,
one of the spirits that you all loved very much.
Yeah, she said that this dark psychic said that one of the ladies, the spirit's name was Mary, was that Mary asked her to leave and to send her to the light. And I don't buy that for a second, because we have had numerous psychics in there over the years. And in being part of the tour, I know a lot of psychic people that I trust, and I would always make sure that I would bring in a psychic, remotely, and to go over every building and communicate with the spirits there to make sure that everybody was happy and everybody was good. And then out of all the psychic people to leave, no, she did it on her own. She did it on her own. And that killed another building. So we don't have a tour anymore.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah. Yeah. Apparently they don't want our money. So, but that's where I saw the ghost insect.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It was kind of fun.
Yeah.
Kind of fun. What other paranormal stories have really kind of weirded you out over the years that people have told you and shared?
Yeah, well, certainly I've heard a few kind of seafaring ones that have always, the kind of drowned at sea ship that returns empty kind of stories. So one of the great ones was actually just down the coast from you, and I was told this story from Pirate Chris, of course. Because he was on an archaeological survey in the Point Reyes area, which I'm not sure if you're familiar where that is, but it's basically straight down the coast from British Columbia, just north of San Francisco Bay. You have Drake's Bay, and that's a very treacherous part of the Pacific. There's a lot of rip currents, and a very, very kind of like rocky lots of rocky outcrops, whatever, lots of rocks. So it's dangerous. It's dangerous. There's not a lot of ports. The nearest port back in the day was up to Fort Ross, which was quite a ways, and just generally not a real easy area to navigate. And ships still don't navigate it very well. It's just really rugged, that Northern California coast there. So there's a lifeguard station from probably the turn of the 20th century, that had been there for quite a while. And they were staying in this kind of old historic house and doing a survey of the land around there. And they were told a couple of stories. Before they had heard a lot of these stories, the first night that they were there, this crew, and I think it was like 4 men and 1 woman. So the woman was sleeping in her own quarters, and then the men were sharing like the bunkhouse or whatever. And both sides of the house heard, like slamming of cupboards in the kitchen and all kinds of kind of crazy noises, to the point where she actually chose to sleep on the other part of the house and sleep on like a couch or something. So she wasn't on this other wing by herself. And these were all like scientists, who spent a lot of time out in like rugged terrain. They're not easily spooked or frightened. They battle rattlesnakes every day. They dig up skeletons, they're not like, easily frightened. So after a couple of days, now what my friend told me is that he was probably a little bit more on the paranormal spectrum than some of the other people that he worked with. They were certainly more cynical, and they didn't really like to talk about it, but they did share their experiences. But he went and he started talking with the docent who was there, who was kind of letting them in. And what had happened years ago was that a ship had been in distress up near north of Drake's Bay. And so these lifeguards kind of went out, and they had gone out in the Coast Guard ship, and they went forth. There was a signal. They were tracked. They went to kind of like reach this ship. They got it to safety. And then they signaled that they were heading back, and they were coming back into Drake's Bay, and they never returned. The next morning, their ship returned, their kind of small boat returned, and sort of like had returned back to this boathouse. And, but the 6 crewmen were never to be seen again. And I don't even believe they ever recovered their bodies. But this boathouse was kind of, from there on out, a bit cursed. So it had been several times, ships had gone out from there, and there had been problems. So finally, they sort of just like decommissioned it. They were like, this is really horrible. All of these people died. We're going to just like close this up. This is like the 20s or the 30s. So in, I believe, the 60s or 70s, they decided to, let's reopen this. And they actually shined up the boat that had gone out, that had been missing. Now it was this beautiful historic boat, and they set it up in the boathouse, and they had kind of up on like the horses to clean it and everything, and it came crashing down, and it almost killed someone. So okay, that's not so good. So anyway, they continue restoring it, and they go to kind of like put it into the bay and kind of rechristen it, and it crashed again. And at that point, they just decided that it was going to just be put away, and no one was going to take it out into the water. And then since then, there have been, over the last 50 years, there have been numerous accounts of strange sounds, a lot of like activity in that boathouse. So I think there's a lot of those kind of seafaring ghost stories all along the coast, and certainly along like a lake like Lake Superior, where there are so many shipwrecks. You hear a lot of haunted lighthouses and things like that, which are really interesting.
No kidding.
Yeah.
No kidding. We have about 2.5 minutes before we have to go to break. At the top of the hour, Varla Ventura is our guest tonight on Our Cryptid World. Varla, with all these paranormal stories, how much do people really need to worry if they hear something go bump in the night that doesn't make sense in their house?
I mean, my number one concern if I hear something is usually not ghost, it's intruder, right? That's probably a greater threat to us than any kind of ghost or entity, right? It's someone actually coming into your house. So I think certainly for me, and I have heard this from many, many people that I've talked with about their experiences, when you are actually having a paranormal encounter, you are not necessarily, and maybe this was even true with that, scuttling insect. In that moment, you're not completely aware that you're like, oh, I am seeing a ghost right now, right? You're thinking, your mind is kind of kicking in with this, like, I'm going to rationalize this. Somehow for example, one time something hit me in the forehead and I was convinced I had a leak in my ceiling, and, got up and inspected everything. And it was then when I realized, oh, actually, I think something just, I think my grandmother probably came and thwacked me in the forehead in the night, her ghost. So I think that we get real worked up about it, being afraid about it, when we hear the stories after the fact. But in that moment, most of us are kind of like, whoa, what is really happening? And so you don't actually really have that fear all the time. And, I think by and large, for many people, having a paranormal experience can be a really positive thing, although it can confuse us and just really, make us wonder. But, a lot of us are visited by loved ones, and that's really great. I love when that happens.
That is kind of cool.
Yeah.
It is very cool when it happens. And God bless him for doing that.
Yeah.
Or whatever you believe in. Yeah.
So, no.
Always ending on a note. I'm noticing a lot of chat in our chat room tonight regarding Slenderman. Do you want to go there when we come back?
Sure. Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Well, let's go to Slenderman when we come back with Varla Ventura on Spaced Out Radio, because apparently this is what we could call a tulpa. Never existed until it came out and people brought their energy to create this creature. Now it's seen everywhere.
Yeah.
Slenderman next on Spaced Out Radio with Varla Ventura. VarlaVentura.net is her site. We'll be back. We are clear.
Okay.
I'll be back.
Okay. I'm going to take a quick stretch.
You go.
Break.
I'll leave your mic on so that way if you want to chat with people.
Okay. Great.
All right.
Thanks. Okay. Yes, I agree. Sorry, I was on mute there. I agree that the shadowy spider thing was pretty freaky. Dave's story was quite terrifying. Probably one of the crazier things. It is called Blue Velvet, Smoky Mountain Wanderer. It's actually called Blue Velvet. It's the most beautiful color. And yes, I am. Dope. You guys are smarter than me and funnier than me. You should be guests on this show.
Dave's coming back.
Everybody act cool.
Yeah.
Play it cool. Play it cool. Nothing to see here.
What is the color of the wall behind you?
Blue velvet.
Blue velvet. Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
I have my ceiling is blueberry.
Oh, is it? Is ceiling where you are right now?
Yeah, it's
or
blueberry.
Just elsewhere? Yeah. My whole room is actually this color.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm sitting on a blue velvet couch, which is kind of hard to see because it just blends into the wall. But there's just a theme. Oh, look at that. Blueberry. Hey, that looks like the same color.
Yeah.
Interesting. Maybe they call it something different in Canada. It's the same color with a different name.
I don't know. All I know is that we are on in 18 seconds. Thank you to Apollo, Jenny, Ed, Chad, and Andrew for the amazing super chats tonight. We really do appreciate it. It's a great way to support what we do. Here we go with the third hour of Spaced Out Radio.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Kicking off the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Thank you to everyone tuning us in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. All you got to do is go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Ichthyocoprolite. Ichthyocoprolite is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. For the final time tonight, we introduce Varla Ventura, and it is our cryptid world. Varla comes in once a month to kind of hang out with us and talk about all the weird, strange, crazy stories that are out there in the cryptid land. And we are going to get into, oh, yes, we are going to get into it big time. Coming on up here. Be damned if I remember what it is.
Slenderman.
I'm forgetting.
Slenderman.
Slenderman.
Yeah.
I kept thinking Hatman for some reason. I'm
we should talk about Hatman too, because Hatman's a little more legit. Yeah.
We could do both. All right. And Varla's website, varlaventura.net. Check out all of her books at any major bookstore if you still go into those, which I think you should, because they are fantastic. Varla, welcome back.
Thank you.
Slenderman. What do we know about him?
Slenderman. Well, the story of Slenderman, as far as I know, and if anyone listening there has more information, basically is that Slenderman is made up, right? That these two girls kind of went into the woods and killed someone and blamed Slenderman. And that Slenderman was actually this kind of like internet meme, not really actually a phenomenon. So, but since then, of course, they're like, I think initially it reminded me of that, you know, say Bloody Mary 13 times in the mirror at midnight on the sleepover kind of thing. Like it kind of started with that in mind. But then it seems like it's gotten a little more intense. And I think it's a really good example of why you can't, I mean, if someone has seen Slenderman and they want to share their experience, I would love to hear it. But my impression of it is that it's kind of something that either the collective consciousness has conjured up and that's why people are seeing it, or it's a case of people trying to jump on a bandwagon to, just interact with other people, not necessarily as a attention thing, but sometimes people will share stories that aren't true in order to be part of a collective group, right? We know that this is like something that humans do. And part of, in my research and collecting stories, and who am I, I wrote a book about mermaids. Who am I to judge you if you saw Slenderman, right? But even I have had many stories that I have chosen to not include because I did not feel that they were actually authentic. So I don't know, as far as I know, it's this like tall, creepy thing with tentacles and long arms. And I think that's why it came up. I was reading through the chat because you were describing this spidery shadow thing, right? And someone said, that reminds me of that story of the two girls who murdered someone in the woods and blamed it on this Slenderman entity. So, yeah.
So what does this creature look like?
So I think he, I don't know why I say he, we don't really know if it has a gender, right? But we're going to kind of just pigeonhole it. Tall, skinny, that's where the slender part comes in. And then actually usually with 2 arms and 2 legs, but then like tentacles that come out of the back or other arms. Some of the accounts show it having other arms. So it's a little bit more spider-like. I've never met anyone who actually has seen this, this creature, I've never met anyone. Have you ever had anyone on your show share a Slenderman story?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always a story of a friend of a friend of a friend. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think it's kind of like an internet thing that is still an internet thing. I know we're on the internet right now, but it's not the same. But I think it's one of those kind of cryptid things that could be an invention of current times. However, there are plenty. And the first time I heard the term Slenderman, I thought that it was a reference to these very tall shadow creatures, which I know a lot of people who have seen these, and they're very tall and thin. And there's also the bent neck guy, right? Like more than one person has told a story to me. I have not seen the bent neck guy, but my friend that just told me about this thing looming over her kind of sideways with his neck bent because he was so tall and thin that he couldn't fit in the room. And I've heard other accounts. I've heard several of them on the campfire stories. And I've had more than one person tell me about a shadow creature that's very tall and thin, but it doesn't have like tentacles and things. It looks more sort of like a very large creature. Kind of like the Hat Man. Now, the Hat Man's a little different. I love Hat Man stories. It's basically a ghost with a hat. It's basically a ghost, it's outline of a figure, and it's usually wearing a hat, like a bowler hat or a fedora. And a lot of the stories are the Hat Man watching from a distance, kind of in like an X-Files-y type way, watching from a distance, opening the window and looking out, and there's someone looking up at the street, and you think it's like, some kind of weird person, but actually then it disappears. Or seeing someone walk through your room wearing kind of what looks like an old-fashioned hat. That I have heard a lot of Hat Man stories, and I've seen actually a couple things that I think could have been like Hat Man. I don't think it's all the same. I don't think there's one Hat Man like traveling the world freaking people out. I think it's just a category of a type of ghost.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So with the Hat Man, what's the difference between Hat Man and Slender Man? They're both wearing hats.
Is Slender Man wearing a hat? I'm not sure. Hat Man, I think, is just a ghost that people see all over frequently. Is just the outline of a ghost. And Hat Man stories go back, at least 50, 60 years that I've heard people telling stories about some kind of man or man-like creature wearing a hat, sort of walking through. Now, the Slender Man, I don't know if it wears a hat or not. I actually am not sure about that. But as far as I know, Slender Man was like a fictitious story that was used as an excuse for some, murderous behavior.
Interesting.
I might have that wrong, but that's what I remember about it.
Interesting. That just
Slender Man sounds more Cthulhu-like, right? More kind of like cryptidy and strange, whereas Hat Man is more of like more of a ghost or like a shadow person.
Either way, what would bring them up? What kind of energy around a person would bring these creatures up?
Well, I think something like the Hat Man, it actually could be a very positive thing. I mean, of course, we don't know for sure. But if you're being watched, then perhaps you're also being looked after. So that's something to kind of consider. I've thought that many times when I've seen a ghost or a shadow creature in my house or, some place that I'm staying. I think, okay, you see me, I see you. All right. We got a healthy understanding here that we can see each other, right? We have that that momentary glitch where we're actually able to see something that in theory isn't really there. So I don't think that something like the Hat Man necessarily is there to cause like a certain kind of energy. It could be completely peaceful and benign. It could be that someone is like really, really frightened and they need comfort, or it could be that someone is misbehaving and they need to be frightened. I don't think there's one thing tied to the Hat Man. I think with something like the Slender Man in particular, because we know that it was sort of perpetuated as this excuse for this like horrible murder and stabbing. I think, something like that, if it's actually a tulpa and it's being conjured back up, then it's some form of aggression or, completely like violent behavior. But speaking of violent behavior, and this is probably going to be a little too personal, but I'm going to go there anyway. One of the times that I felt really strong, very intense intervention in terms of some kind of ghostly presence. So I lived in this apartment with an ex-boyfriend. Well, he's an ex-boyfriend now, but at the time he was my boyfriend. And we had both seen numerous times, seen what we think maybe was the same entity. And one night it turned out later, I know this now, but he was bipolar. And so he had these kind of like he was just kind of getting to that point where he was about to be diagnosed. And so there were some pretty extreme mood swings. And one night it actually got got quite violent and very threatening. And at that moment, I swear to you, I saw whatever this thing was that I had been seeing. I saw it kind of come up behind where he was in the hall. And I don't know, maybe I had said something that had calmed the situation down, but his face completely changed and his behavior completely changed like that. Now, guy was bipolar. A lot of crazy things were happening in that moment. But the fact that I saw this really kind of otherwise somewhat gentle entity moving quite swiftly, kind of up behind it, was just this sort of very quick, this kind of thing happens in like less than 10 seconds. And how quickly the behavior changed, it really made me think, all right, I'll take it. If that was a ghostly intervention, thank you very much. So I think that sometimes aggression or kind of bad situations like that can actually bring out some of that, entities or whatever. Maybe they're there to help, or they're there to, they just feed on it.
You know which creature is really driving me nuts?
A werewolf?
No. No. All the young kids, and my son got into this for a while, which was the Siren Head, which is like a long, tall, lanky, 20, 30 foot tall creature. But instead of a head, it has a siren horn, and it's said to, look for people and chase people down, and you can hear him in the distance because he's got this siren blasting.
You mean a megaphone kind of?
Yeah. And it is the most annoying thing. And for a few months, my son was all about Siren Head, Dad, Siren Head. And this is all over the internet about this Siren Head creature and how he goes looking for children who are acting up. And, I'm sure it's just freaky, and I had to tell my son so many times that this isn't true. And he's got this real annoying sound to his siren. And, this is another one of those Slenderman type things where it could become a tulpa and created just because everybody puts the energy out there to create these creatures. And I hope not, because this one, honestly, I would chase this one down personally and blow that siren's head off, because it is that annoying of a creature. Have you heard of that one?
I have not, thankfully, heard of that one. But that's just one of those, I think that was kind of the really scary thing about the Slenderman story, and the way that these girls kind of blamed this behavior on the Slenderman, was the idea that somehow, okay, first of all, like there's a lot of vulnerable people out there, right? And they're not, and I'm not saying like gullible people, but vulnerable people who are maybe really empathic or really young or looking for something. They're on some forum and they're reading this Reddit thread about, the Slenderman. But the truth is, we've had these kind of stories, right? The hitchhiker who keeps hearing the scratch on the roof, and the lights blaring behind because there was a serial killer on the roof. And we've had these kind of stories. It's just with the internet having this kind of visual element to it, really kind of pushing it forward. And then, it doesn't matter if you sit right next to your kids all the time, they're going to find something that you don't want them to see. And but I think that the way that these girls sort of twisted the idea into being this creature rather than their own behavior was really the most terrifying part of that whole story. It wasn't that there was a Slender Man. It was that two teenage girls were saying, hey, it's the witch trials all over again, right? You just, I tore my husband apart, so I'm actually a werewolf, but I'll just blame it on this phenomenon instead of being held accountable for my behavior.
Right. But this is only going to continue with CGI, with the creation and the creative minds of young people as they look for new fears and things to scare them. This is where this all kind of pops up, is through imagination and creativity on the internet now.
Yeah, which isn't all bad, right? Like, you got to have some of that. Like, that's the beauty of the internet, is that kind of a forum for this kind of, for not this specific kind of Siren Head creativity, but that it is a way that these kind of things can spread, right? So there's this kind of beauty to that, or, whatever. But at the same time, there's that very, very dark side. And that's sort of that, I mean, it's the same thing as like a gossip rag in the 1980s, or, commercial television, or basically, in the 1800s, senators just taking over publishing and writing whatever they wanted in the papers to fit their agendas. It's misinformation shared widely in order to create some kind of mayhem.
Is that going to continue?
Oh, yeah. I mean, of course.
Well, I guess what I'm saying, though, is how much is that going to add to future cryptid legends? Because like Hat Man, Shadow Man, Slender Man, Siren Head, this is all like this new wave of what cryptid creatures that we hoped were alive 100 years ago. Right.
And so it makes, but, people said that, like Mothman, right? Like that's kind of like the holy grail of modern cryptids. And there are still some more modern Mothman sightings. So we know that this isn't just one story on the internet, but that's something that is it kind of a newer cryptid. So are we being duped by the last, 50 years of accounts of that? I mean, I don't know. Like, there's no way of knowing.
I don't know. What I do know is we have about 4 minutes left with you tonight. And It's a show that flew right by.
Yeah.
It totally did.
It actually did. Tonight really went fast. It's because we missed each other.
Of course. I mean, should we not be breaking into song or anything like that before we leave?
We should not do that.
No.
Let's not do that.
Yeah, Spaced Out Radio Party in Vegas. Yeah. Varla and I are going to go on stage and sing with Wayne Newton and Dunca Shane. That's what we're going to do.
Okay, this is the truth-telling night, and this is the night when you decide if you really still want to be my friend after the breakfast for dinner. But I don't karaoke.
Neither do I.
Okay, all right.
But we're still going to do it.
I'd sing with Wayne Newton. Yeah, I mean.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
When in Vegas.
It happens. It happens. Well, do me a favor. Take some time. Tell everybody about your books you have out there and what you're working on.
Okay. Well, I am actually working on a couple different books right now. But if you want to follow me or find out what the heck I'm up to, you can visit me at varlaventura.net. Dave so graciously plugs that. varlaventura.net, and you can find out about my books. I have a Varla Ventura's Paranormal Parlor, which is all about the history of spiritualism, seances, ghosts, tales of haunted places around the country, few good ghost stories of my own and of dear friends in there. And I'm working on a couple different books. I have a store on my website now, and so I'm about to launch a few more items in there. I meant to use my Varla Ventura mug to cheers you, but I'm just a terrible marketer. So I didn't do any of that. But yeah, I'm actually working on a couple of books right now. And one of them is about plants, actually, and the kind of the fairy and folklore behind certain plants and how they're used. So that's
kind of
poisoning
cool.
Out. Yep.
And everybody can still find your books at any major bookstore because you're one of the lucky ones.
I haven't made my publisher mad enough yet to pull them, so we're all still in print. Yeah.
Well, that's nice. What's that? Well, I gotta ask you, what is that feeling like when you walk into a bookstore or you look on a bookshelf and there's your book?
So the local bookstore here does have a couple of my books, and I just haven't quite come out of my hiding enough to walk in there and say, by the way, that's me, because a lot of people have no idea what I look like. So it's kind of great. But it's pretty awesome. I have people send me pictures when they see, my mermaid book in a window, or my mom always, takes, oh, guess what? I was in, this store in town and they had your book. So, it's prideful. It's great.
Do you ever think, or do you ever go in there and just sign a bunch of them?
Oh, like Neil Gaiman. He totally guerrilla marketing goes in and like signs all books in like the airports and stuff. I have done that, but I honestly, it's usually just like one copy of my book in there. So I have to be pretty, I don't know.
That's still, I would never leave the house without a Sharpie if I had a book in every major bookstore.
Like,
oh, totally.
Yeah.
I would totally take advantage of that.
Well, I never leave the house without a Sharpie, but that's because I'm a serial graffiti artist. Just kidding. I'm totally not.
You're Banksy. You are Banksy.
I'm Banksy.
Oh, I love Banksy art.
Yeah.
Love Banksy art.
And the great thing is that we have no idea who Banksy is, right? We really don't. Know. So it could be Slenderman.
Could be Slenderman or Siren Head. Varla Ventura, thank you so much.
Thanks for the warning about Siren Head, by the way.
Yeah, watch out for that one. We will talk to you next month for our Cryptid World.
Beautiful. Much
love to you. And you stay right there because we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. VarlaVentura.net is her website. Coming up next, we have the SOR Newswire. We have the Thought of the Dave. Stay tuned. Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. Great show, Varla Ventura.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks. That really did fly by. I love this Apollo 11. What if you just started signing random books and telling the onlookers that you were the author? Or you sign it, right? You just sign it, and then you kind of just like put it back and sort of act cool and pull your hat down and you kind of act cool and slowly leave the store, because that would be more convincing that you might actually be someone, right? Mm-hmm. Sunglasses and stuff. I like that.
Could you imagine if you got smacked around for graffiti on books? Like, say you walk up and you sign a book and you get caught by somebody in the bookstore and they're like, "What are you doing?" And you're like, "I'm Varla Ventura." And they're going to be like,
they're going to be like, "Why didn't you just tell us?"
And they're going to be like, "Do you have any ID to prove that?"
Right.
And you're going to be like, "It's my pen. It's my pen name.
Yeah.
I don't have any ID.
This book is my ID."
You don't even have your picture on the back of the book?
No, I don't have my picture on any of the books. Nope. That was my choice, actually.
Well, really?
Mm-hmm.
I'm still waiting for
I didn't want people to see the horns.
I'm still waiting for my first Varla Ventura book.
What? Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's my bad. Okay, text me your address and I'll remedy that.
Well, I don't know. Since you don't autograph books, I don't know about that.
No, I do autograph books. I just don't go into stores and autograph books without...
I tell you what, Vegas party, okay, for SOR, because I know you're going to attend.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely attending.
We're going to go to the bookstores in Vegas, and if your books are in there, we're going to sign them, and we're going to film it.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah. Great. Good publicity. Again, I'm a terrible marketer.
We're totally going to do that.
Okay. That sounds super fun.
For some reason...
Can we invite Joe Diamond? Because I feel like you should be involved in that.
Kevin's asking, ask Varla if you could take a couple of capture shots of her tonight, please.
I don't know what that means.
I don't have capture shots on my computer, man.
You mean like Command 3 screenshot?
I don't know.
No.
I think Kevin's in love.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. That's just me.
Uh-huh. I like when your head was bigger and mine was smaller on the side. I was more comfortable with that.
You know who's got a real big head? Fap in our chat room.
Oh, really?
Massive melon.
How do you know that?
Because he's the inspiration behind the Tootsie Pop. You know, very small body and a giant head.
How many licks does it take to get to the center?
We'll never know. At least I won't.
Come on. I can't be the only one who thought that. Who's with me here?
Where is Fapster? He probably fell asleep. I don't have any recent shots of Varla for ads. Well, just go back.
That's much more honorable.
Yeah. Hi, Troy. How are you, buddy? How you doing? Super Quest. There he is. Big Bad Roy Washington. He's going to be my bodyguard in Vegas.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
You're gonna need that.
We are totally. Quest is going to come to Vegas, and he is totally going to be my bodyguard. And we're going to talk baseball and football and basketball and maybe some hockey if I could convince him. And we are going to make sure that we have a good time. That's right. Love Roy Washington. Love him. Yeah. You know what? You got to do me a favor. You got to go. You got to go on his show, Roy's show. He's got an awesome podcast out of Milwaukee.
Ooh, you're my neighbor.
Yeah, and he's got an awesome podcast called The Quest, and he's all happy that his Bucks are the champs. And I've been a guest on his show.
Yeah, the Bucks.
He's a great interviewer, so you got to do his show.
Yeah, I'd love to. Absolutely.
Yeah, he's freaking awesome. Freaking awesome. There, I should be your booking agent there, Super Quest.
See, already you're a better marketer than I am. Okay, if you guys are doing screenshots, just make sure I don't have a double chin, okay? That's like my own. Don't make sure I'm not making a dumb face like nah or something like that. Oh, yeah, that's my only request. Otherwise, it's bad advertising for me.
Exactly.
Otherwise, it's who's that cryptid next to Dave?
I don't know.
Why did he let her in the room?
I don't know. Are you sticking around for the news? Are you going to hang out with us, or are you going to leave?
I wasn't gonna. I was going to leave, but I'll watch it.
You can hang out if you want.
Do you want me to?
It's up to you.
I'm going to go.
All right. Good
night. Love you.
Love you too. Bye.
Bye.
Varla Ventura, everyone. Let's kick the news off here. We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. I'm the guy behind the microphone and the beautiful hair. Yeah, it's true. It's true. I want to remind you that if you missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. Speaking of the news, let's do this thing, shall we? The news is always changing, which is why we bring you the SOR Newswire at the back end of every show, where we get to the weird, the strange, the wacky, and sometimes the absolute scary and terrifying. Listen to this story out of Alaska. A man survived a sleepless showdown with a grizzly bear at his remote mining camp in Alaska, where the beast injured him and then relentlessly harassed him each night for several days in hopes of finishing him off. The unidentified man, who is said to be in his 50s or 60s, suffered a leg injury and a bruised torso from his fight with the bear, according to the U.S. Coast Guard helicopter crew who saved him. The Coast Guard officers spotted a "Help Me" message scrawled on the roof of the man's small mining shack on July 16th in a chance helicopter flyover during an unrelated mission. "We don't really come across people in the middle of nowhere," Lieutenant A.J. Hammock said. "He was kind of struggling. When we came around, he was on his hands and knees waving a white flag. They set the helicopter down and discovered that the man was injured, sleep-deprived, and running out of ammunition to defend himself against the bear. He had a pistol," said helicopter pilot Lieutenant Commander Jared Carbial. He said that the bear kept coming back each and every night, and he hadn't slept in a few days. The man had wrapped tape around his leg wound and appeared to be coming off an adrenaline high from his battle with the bear the night before. He had been alone at the shack outside Nome, Alaska since July 12th, working on a small mining claim in the area with no cell phone reception. His friends had reported him overdue after he hadn't returned back to Nome. The helicopter crew found evidence of the struggle at camp, including a loose door that had been torn off the shack. At some point, a bear had dragged him down to the river, Carbial told the paper, and the man only had 2 rounds left in his pistol and likely would have not survived much longer without the rescue, according to Petty Officer First Class Ali Blackburn, a spokesperson for the Coast Guard. I'd imagine you'd be a little loopy after not sleeping for so long, she said. The victim was taken to hospital and treated for injuries. No word if they're going to go after the bear. All right. In 2011, the Curiosity rover was sent to Mars to collect stones from a location where a lake used to exist. It is important because the fact that there was water could indicate that at some point in life there was life on the desert planet. The clay samples that the robot had found are an indication that at some point there was water on Mars, since it is produced when rocky minerals wear out and rot after having contact with water, which is the key to the existence of life and a material that could store microbial fossils. Since the minerals that we find on Mars are also formed in some places on Earth, we could use what we know on how they identify any form on Earth to tell us how salty or acidic the waters were on ancient Mars, explained Liz Ramp, a Shaman's adjunct principal investigator and co-author for NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston. However, the clay samples rover collected do not contain the element scientists expected, and instead found a high concentration of iron oxide, which would have obliterated any fossil traces. This appears to be due to a high saturation of salt in the water that penetrated the sediment in a process called diagenesis and destroyed any trace of life. Researchers have not lost hope. What they will have to do is change location and look for the clay they analyze in nearby spaces. At least now they know how to distinguish between what works and what doesn't. In other words, we're not supposed to find life there because it was destroyed by nuclear weapons hundreds of thousands of years ago and killed society, which brought mankind to Earth. And this way, we have now overpopulated this population to become Mars Part 2 in about 300,000 years. Yeah. Chimpanzees' lethal attacks on gorillas in the wild have now been observed for the first time. Experts observing dozens of angry chimps in Loangano National Park in Gabon have expected them to be relaxed around gorillas, but not the case. This is a major jungle brouhaha going on. While the two species were usually playful, researchers were surprised to witness occasional vicious attacks. At first, we noticed that only screams of chimpanzees and thought we were observing a typical encounter between individuals of neighboring chimpanzee communities, said Laura M. Southern, the study's lead author. But then we heard chest beats, a display of characteristics from gorillas, and realized that the chimpanzees had encountered a group of 5 gorillas. She added reference to the first attack that the team saw in 2019. Yeah, this group from Osnabrück University and Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology in Germany published the findings on Monday in the journal Nature. The 2 encounters they recorded, which lasted 52 and 79 minutes, without water breaks every 3 minutes, saw the chimpanzees from coalitions launch attacks against the gorillas. Yeah, this was nasty. They were calling them all sorts of names, used every type of wrestling move you could find. The Iron Sheik would have been proud. He should have used him against Hulk Hogan in 1983 when he lost the heavyweight championship by a fast count. Anyways, the silverback and adult female gorillas defended themselves and their offspring. Both silverbacks and several adult females escaped, but 2 gorilla infants were separated from their mothers and killed. Our observations provide the first evidence that the presence of chimpanzees can have a lethal impact on gorillas. We will now want to investigate the factors triggering these surprisingly aggressive actions, said Tobias Deckner, a primatologist at the Max Planck Institute. Yeah, the bad chimpanzees, bad. All right. Anyone who has had a tough time convincing their kid to mow the lawn may want to enlist the help of Rodney Smith Jr. Over the last 5 years, he has inspired thousands of young people to mow dozens of yards in their communities for free, often for people they just met. How does Smith do it? Leads by example. This is really cool. The 33-year-old is the founder of Raising Men and Women Lawn Care Service in Huntsville, Alabama. He and the organization's volunteers help anyone who may need it, including seniors, the disabled, single parents, and veterans. My mission in life is to give back, he said, especially to those who need it the most. In 2017, Smith decided to take this idea nationwide, and he personally mowed at least one lawn for free in all 50 states. Since then, he has completed 10 U.S. tours where he's raised awareness about causes including breast cancer and veterans issues. On these tours, Smith cuts grass with custom-painted mowers that he ultimately auctioned off, raising money for related charities. Smith's Mow with a Cop tour invited community members to mow lawns with local officers. He used mowers decorated to look like police cars and then donated them to local police departments so that they could continue to build these relationships after Smith's tour. When I first started the organization, I really didn't have a clear vision, he said, but as it started going on, I realized the vision was to encourage kids. Smith decided to turn his tours into a movement he named the 50-Yard Challenge. He calls on young people across the country to mow 50 lawns in their communities. Smith sent participants a t-shirt along with ear and eye protection. The kids then post photos of the lawns they've mowed, and for every 10, Smith sends them a different colored t-shirt. And once they mowed 50 lawns, I drive to wherever they are. I present them a brand new mower, weed eater, and blower, he said. To date, Smith said more than 2,000 kids have registered across the United States and 8 other countries. He believes the pandemic helped inspire more young people to sign up. The response was so strong this year that Smith said he had to cut off new registrations at 600. How awesome is that idea? Fantastic. Good for those kids on volunteering as well. What do you need to carry out a successful surgery? Let's just be blunt here. Probably some education would be good, right? Yeah. A sterile environment? Yeah, it goes along with it. A professional surgeon with years of experience? You want one of those, especially if you're not one. And a hospital for all the aftercare, right? Yeah, well, apparently that's a pointless luxury to some. At least if you ask the Alaska man, or Australian man, not Alaskan, Australian man, who decided that he was going to perform 2 castrations in his backyard. Ryan Andrew King, a solid citizen of Brisbane, was charged in September 2020 with 2 counts of causing grievous bodily harm with intent to maim. He snipped off 2 men's genitals during an illegal surgery in 2019 and then again in 2020. And he filmed the whole process. Yeah, this sicko uploaded the footage to the internet because why not? Everybody wants to see a good castration video. But in a surprise twist, Judge Richard Jones gave King a suspended sentence on July 16th and released him on probation. Judge Jones quoted both King's guilty plea expressing remorse and positive impact statements from his, can we say, patients, maybe victims? Yeah, probably more likely. What makes this case particularly weird is that King didn't do anything that he wasn't asked to do. Both of his, you know what, we're going to stick with your victims. Anyways, both of his victims sought King's operation out on their own free will. Yeah. Who does that? Who all of a sudden wakes up one morning and says, you know what, I'm going to cut my knackers off because it's the right thing to do? I don't get that. I don't get that. Makes no sense to me. 2 men casually walked out of a Los Angeles area TJ Maxx. If you haven't seen this video, it's actually kind of weird. Yeah, these 2 thieves had their arms full of what appears to be stolen goods as brazen shoplifters continue to rampage through California retail stores. Viral video posted earlier this week shows 2 men carrying armfuls of jeans, jackets, and other apparel as they usually saunter out of a TJ Maxx in the Granada Hills section of the San Fernando Valley of North LA. That looks great, one man is heard saying in the video as the 2 men headed towards the door with the stolen loot, making no haste as they leave. One of the men appeared to be carrying an oversized duffel bag on his back. The men walked across the parking lot as a man continues filming them, says, "I want to see how far you guys get." The men eventually fill a black sedan with stolen merchandise before nonchalantly driving away from the scene. They didn't even run out. They walked out, LAPD Sergeant Joretta Sandos said. And so that's sending a message that criminals are winning. Shoplifting cases have been on the rise in California cities in recent years. Many say the spike began in 2014 after the passage of Proposition 47, which downgraded charges of property theft of less than $950 in value from a felony to a misdemeanor. Yeah. I mean, these guys just went shopping and took off. And Sandos, who is also the vice president of the LA Police Protective League, added, if they're caught, they'll probably be given the equivalent of a traffic ticket, so it's not taken seriously. Sandos cited an incident in which an employee of a Right Egg in Glassell Park was shot and killed last Thursday morning after he tried to stop two men from stealing a case of beer. The dead employee was identified as 36-year-old Miguel Penaloza. Oh, that's sad. That's sad. According to criminal defense attorney Alexander Kazarian, Penaloza's death shows that store employees are fearful of confronting shoplifters who might use violence if someone tries to stop them. The employees at TJ Maxx may have been told that in these specific circumstances, it's not worth it for you to go and physically stop people that are walking out with the inventory because these businesses have insurance. Kazarian also disputed the notion that shoplifters who walk out with piles of goods are not getting punished. People who are stealing giant tote bags, giant backpacks worth of inventory are not getting the same benefit of the people that are stealing food and clothing for their children. No arrests have been made in the Rite Aid shooting. LAPD released surveillance footage showing the alleged suspects. Yeah, that's terrible. Can you imagine? I feel like some new clothes. Let's go down to California. We're just going to take some. Hell with the consequences. Nobody's going to actually give us a major felony anyways. Let's just do it. Yeah, I need some new Chucks for my feet. Yeah. Now, you've heard me talk about the Fraser River here, the white sturgeon that are on there and swimming in the river. Well, here is a fishing story that a crew from a BC fishing tour boat captured a video of the moment a massive 9-foot sturgeon leaped out of the river and nearly landed in the boat. Yves Bisson, the fishing tour operator who posted the video to TikTok, said the crew is fishing near Chilliwack. Yeah, I know Chilliwack very well. And on the Fraser River, I know this spot. I've been there. When a substantial sturgeon took a leap into the air, and boy, could they dance. If you ever get the chance to go sturgeon fishing, do that. They love to dance on the water. Yeah, it almost landed in the boat, and the guy holding the rod couldn't believe what he just saw. This estimated the fish weighed about 350 pounds and most likely was about 50 years old or more. He said the fish was tagged for research purposes and released back into the river. It was the fish of a lifetime. My record, 75 pounds. Not 350, 75. And I even gave it a kiss goodbye before it left back into the water. A Canadian YouTuber and inventor earned his second Guinness World Record when he and his team created the world's brightest outsized flashlight. James Hobson, founder of Hacksmith Industries and creator of the Hacksmith channel on YouTube, posted a video showing off the supersized flashlight, which shines at a record-breaking 501,031 lumens. Yeah. The Hacksmith's team Night Bright 300 flashlight contains 300 LED bulbs. Guinness World Records said the most powerful commercially available flashlight, the AMOLED MS-18, contained only 18 LEDs. Team said the Night Bright 300 contained 50 boards, which each have 6 LED bulbs, and the boards are connected to drivers that are all powered by a single battery. The inventor said they used a Fresnel reading magnifier to center the light and created a focus beam after their initial build resulted in multi-directional light being projected around the workshop. The team used a Crookes radiometer, a tool that is used as a high-powered fan to measure the power of light waves, and the intensity of the light from the Night Bright 300 caused the radiometer to explode. Good for them. Good Canadian kids working on flashlights right there. And that's the way we do it up here in the Great White North, when we are surrounded by forest fires. Thought of the Dave happens every night at this time, where we ask a question on our Facebook and Twitter pages, then read your responses on the air, because we love the audience participation around here. Today's Thought of the Dave is as follows. Explain to me if you'd rather encounter Bigfoot or Dogman. Start with Nick. I'd rather encounter Bigfoot and have rocks thrown at me instead of Dogman and have my body shred to pieces and scattered in the trees and around the rest of the forest. Amy, never thought about Dogman until your show, talking about it all the time. Will take my chances on a Bigfoot encounter. Lainey, whichever one is the slowest. Good call, Lainey. Good call. All right, let's move on. Alex, Dogman Dave, because he'll rip my shirt off with his claws and Bigfoot have no claws, and then I'll have an excuse to walk around shirtless. This is called method. Method. Catherine, both should have rather worked muscle tissue, so I suppose whichever one provides a better steak to eat. Wendy, Dogman. I love working with dogs, and I feel I could hold myself together better if I encountered a canine-esque creature than an ape-like creature. Joe, I would rather meet Bigfoot. Bigfoot will kill me if I do something wrong. Dogman will kill me just for the hell of it. True. Mike, I've had a bad encounter with Dogman and never Sasquatch, so my answer is easily Bigfoot. Many more reasons to why, but that's simplified. Will, Dogfoot. Sandra, I'd rather have a rock thrown at me as a threat as opposed to growling and being ripped apart as a threat. John, can't find anything reliable where anyone's been killed by either, so I'd counter either of them. Brucey Bruce, Catwoman if given a chance. Kevin, Dogman Dave, I prefer a tiresome game of fetch while hiking nonstop out of the woods than the chance of a surprising game of hiding the salami with Bigfoot. Damn my alluring behind. Where do you come up with this? Where do you come up with this? How do I continue after that? That is brilliant. The conjecture of it went right over top of my head right till the end. Wow. Good job, Kev. That's what I live for on the Thought of the Dave, is answers like that. John, no way I would ever encounter a Dogman. Bobby, I want to play into Patty Bigfoot. Why? Her boobies. Constance, Bigfoot to prove it exists. Tim, Bigfoot hands down, not into sharp teeth. Joshua, Bigfoot. I feel like Dogman is more feral animal and Bigfoot would have intelligence hopefully you could reason with. Captain Shirk gets the final say. She would choose either because Dogman will let her scratch behind the ears without a puddle of pee because it'll be housebroken. Bigfoot because of his protective nature in taking Captain Shirk into the wilds yonder. There we go. Thank you to everybody playing this Thought of the Dave. We'll do it all again on Facebook and Twitter very, very soon. Thank you to Captain Shirk for the SOR Newswire. And, of course, to Varla Ventura and varlaventura.net for Our Cryptid World, another monthly feature here on Spaced Out Radio. We love Varla around here. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thaw rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight on YouTube, LGAB, Twitch, Revolution Radio, Spreaker, Facebook, the Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us. Because together, my friends, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night. It's a good show. High quality radio right there again, people. High quality. That's what we do around here. Sick and tired of wearing headphones. But they're so much healthier for your ears than earbuds. I hate earbuds. Earbuds make my ears itchy. Do they do that for you too? Asking. All right, now I'm going to take a bathroom break. I'll be right back. Don't leave. I know there's like 93 people here, but this is where the fun times happen, right after the show. I'll take your questions too. So we'll be right back. All right. Oh, good. We're downloaded. What's happening, people? What's happening? I didn't see the gorgeous Bat Mom. She here? Hey, sweet Donna C. How are you? Oh, excuse me. All right. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. No, I don't want that. Let's go there instead. 0722 Varla Ventura. Come on, who doesn't want to party with our gorgeous and talented Varla Ventura at the Vegas party? Let's be honest. There's a reason to go right there. Don't you think? Total reason to go. All right, let's get this going right here. Where's our music start? Right there. And we're going to go to right there. Save this. There we go. Dave, have you ever wanted to see the DMT machine elves? No. No. I don't need DMT in order to experience things. And I'll be honest with you, after losing my nephew to an overdose, I don't really want to take any chances on, excuse me, any sort of narcotics. Not a good show. It was a great show. You do bring great guests. Thank you. You do own the night. Thank you. Nicola, thank you so much. That is just such a nice compliment. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I didn't know you were a retired police officer. You must have seen some weird shit back on the beat, man. Hey, there's gorgeous Bat Mom. Dave, have you ever heard of or tried a sensory deprivation tank? No, but I have done a couple of experiments 3 times. Was it 4 or 3? I think it was 3. My guru, Pascal, who opened me up spiritually, we did this experiment of being in a completely dark room, like completely pitch black room. and Pascal sat in we cleared out he had a 2-bedroom condo. We cleared everything out of that condo that was on the floor. We had 2 lawn chairs set up in that room, one for him, one for me. And in the black room, when we sat down in the lawn chairs, we meditated. We were across from each other. About 3 feet separated us. And the shit we saw, oh my goodness. It's amazing. There was like a galaxy that formed right above us, and you could see it swirling, and you could see little orbs of light like the size of peas shooting out from it. And then the spirits started coming around to chat and to talk. And you could, at one point I remember in that dark room, I could actually see my hands glowing. Like, this room is so dark. Like, you put your hand right here and you cannot see it. That's how dark it was. And yet, the second time we did this, the second time we did this, we actually, I could see my hand glowing right in front of me. It was the trippiest thing ever. Completely insane how weird that was. So I would recommend it. Like, you got to go to a dark room. Like, he had like 3 of the thickest Glad garbage bags duct taped over his window. So there was like no possible way that light could come in. And it was just absolutely nuts with that. And I would love to do that again. I really, really would love to do that again and experiment with that just to see what else comes out. I remember seeing at one point my deceased dog had come, and my deceased dog was sitting right beside me, and I could totally see him. And Pascal, like I said, is like 3 feet away and could not see anything that I was seeing, and I wasn't seeing anything that he saw. It was quite a spiritual awakening, that's for sure. Mondak, why are headphones healthier than earbuds? Because earbuds, when they go in, they don't allow your ears to breathe, and the hairs on your ears don't vibrate don't vibrate properly, and it actually, earbuds hurt your ear muscles. It's a weird thing, but it's apparently true. So I try not to use earbuds because they are bad for you. Hold on. Well, that I cut a little bit too. Oh, there it is. Grandmaster, bring it down a little bit. All right. That's not cool. Not in our room, man. You know that. I'm removing those comments, Grandmaster. All right. You're not blocked. You're not timed out or anything, but not in my room, man. Well, let's see here. Right about there. Let's go here. I'm hungry. I'm craving an apple. What about volunteer firefighting? You can totally volunteer firefight. You got to go through the training, I think. What about my guitars? What do you want to ask about the guitars? Interject your guest with a question, not a pause. I don't get that. I don't get that. Next time you do, when you get 100 grand, Grandmaster, you donate it to Spaced Out Radio. That's what you do. I'll take good care of it for you. How about that? Good night, Mama Susan. B. Hoff, what's the guitar talk? You know I always get distracted by guitar talk. Oh, what was Applesauce asking about the guitars? I can't see that far up, I don't think. Applesauce there. Applesauce there. Applesauce there. Nothing about guitars. Must have been when I was reading the news or something. I got no new riffs. I did practice a little bit today. Well, thank you. Thank you. Oh. This one's way out of tune. This one's hard to tune. Hold on. There you go. Oh, it's tuned. Not getting any good. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Oh. Do 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 do. I always forget this part. There you go. No, I fucked it up. I forget my B chord. I think it's this. No, that ain't it. Maybe it's that one? No. God, I forget the B chord. Trying string go 1, 2, 3, 4. String 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I played this today. Hold on. Oh. What's that next note? Do, do, do. Oh, do, 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 do. Well, that ain't it. Well, that sucks. I got lost. Hold on. I'm going to move these into here. I actually got to do work here for a quick second. Oh, I tried doing one chord today. It absolutely sucked. I could not get my fingers over. My finger, this finger here, my ring finger, this finger kept on lying on the string below it. So I got to train my finger to bend up a little bit more so it hovers above the string. It's that one right there. That's the one I'm struggling with right now. Just trying to learn that chord today. It's not coming out nice. See, because it's just trying. Anyways, all in the process of learning. All in the process of learning. Eventually, I'll get it. I've improved. I'm not going to lie. I've improved. It's a marathon, not a race. And it's really cool because I practice with my son. Which is really cool. I enjoy that. No, that's not it. It's no, that's a missing chord here. Rock You Like a Hurricane. That's what the other one I'm trying to play here. I know this is the start of it. Where is it? That's it. No, that's wrong. I'm trying. It's actually a fun guitar to play. And I like the fact that it's got a thin neck. It's easy to get across. That's all I got. It's all my sweet child of mine I got right there. 762-048. It doesn't sound good. Either way, I'm trying. One of those things I do. It is kind of cool to learn how to read music at the same time, too, because I never came from a really musically inclined family. Like, my sisters don't play any instruments. My dad, I guess back in high school, played trumpet. And I never really... I played like a year and a half of saxophone in high school, but I hated it. And I really haven't learned how to read music since. So the fact that I'm starting to learn how to like read music and all that kind of stuff is really cool too. So I'm pretty, I realize I'm at a real small beginner's point of my adventure here, but it's really cool. Like even seeing the results from like a couple months ago before I started guitar lessons. Now I can see why like people just pick them up and play, because it's just so much fun. Am I a spy? I wish. I totally wish. I get some. I would totally be making more money than what I am now. Fuck, I wish I was a spy. That doesn't sound right. Totally out of tune. Totally sounds wrong. Ugh, gross. Hey, JR, how you doing? That one's done. That one's done. That one's still going. That's all I know of that one. Perfect. No, I don't play acoustic. I don't. I must learn to rock first. All right. Tomorrow night on the show, Jim Goodall is going to talk some UFOs, black projects, and spy planes. Hey, SJ. You definitely did not make the medal position tonight. What do I do for a day job? Exactly. I will say this. I work in financing. Mark Mantel, no. No, I don't work for a bank. Jim Goodall tomorrow night. Whammy bar. That's all I got for tonight. Talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye.